Welcome, everybody, to the Rare and Mythic set review for Bloomburrow here on the Limited Level Ups podcast feed and YouTube channel. We're back. We did the commons and uncommons yesterday. We're here on Twitch live on day 2 doing Rares, Mythics, and for once, no bonus sheet. We have some special guests at the end like we always do, but we've just got 90 cards to talk about today. It's not 150 cards like it is sometimes. Should be pretty straightforward. Mark, anything big picture about the rares? I don't know how deep you've gone on looking at the rares. Sometimes you have some commentary on them before we get started. Anything in that department, or kind of just we'll take things as we go?
Yeah, well, as usual, I spend less time looking at the rares, but certainly had a cursory glance over them as usual. I'll start with talking about. I kind of like to talk about what I hope to see from the rares, and then we kind of evaluate that. And even though we talked about it a little bit, I do think our prediction of MH3 having less busted rares, did turn out to be true.
Yeah.
Uh, this set seems to be very similar. It seems like most of the A's and A plus level cards are restricted to mythics, which I really appreciate. It does look like there's decent support for all of the creature types. So there's going to be benefits for that. I would also hope to see rares that kind of let you do something a little bit different, right? So like you don't always have to draft, lizards if you're black red. Maybe you get to do something a little bit different. I don't think there's a ton of that, but I'll be interested to see as we go through if we maybe spot out some potential says that says, hey, this might lead you down a slightly different path. So I do think it's going to be a little bit on rails for the drafting once you've figured out your color pair and your creature type. But time will tell, of course, and let's dive into it.
Yeah, so we're starting with the multicolored cards like we usually do. We're going to go through a whole host of pretty powerful cards to start out with, to be honest. Lots of kind of B's and A's is we're going to see for the first, I'd say, hour of us talking here, just because the gold cards tend to be pretty powerful. And our first one is Castrol, the Windcrested. So this is the blue-white rare, 3 blue-white for a 4/3 legendary creature bird at rare. It's got flying, of course, and it has the ability, whenever one or more birds you control deal combat damage to a player, you choose one. You either put a bird creature card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. You put a +1/+1 counter on each bird you control, or just simply you draw a card. And notably, this is kind of, you can have this hasty, this comes down, you have other birds, you attack with those, you get one of these triggers. Doesn't have to attack itself.
Yeah, and kind of nice that even though you do have to play this pre-combat, the fact that your birds probably don't need combat tricks to get through is going to be super helpful for this, because it's not like, you're going to have to run your bird into a trade or something. Like you'll hopefully be able to fly over and get a clean connection in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of has an ETB as long as you've got enough birds for it.
Yeah, and it's a pretty darn good one. If you do have a bird in your graveyard, I imagine that's going to be the main thing, or a good, better bird than this in your hand, or like a secondary bird in your hand. You're going to put something into play. Getting that big tempo boost is going to be the main thing you want. But I can see sometimes you put the counters on as your first thing if you're bored and you're like just close to lethal. And draw a card is kind of like your buyout mode if neither of those other two are good. But the card's very strong.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be putting in stuff from hand very often. Like
No.
most of the birds top out at 5 mana, and it's not giving you card advantage if you're putting it in something from your hand. Whereas if you're doing from the graveyard, you are getting the card out of it. So I'd rather put like a 2 or 3 drop bird from my graveyard into play than I would dump one from my hand personally. But that's of course context dependent.
Yeah. What about in a deck with hard to have, but nowhere close to no other birds? Still pretty okay, right? Like not amazing. It's like a 5 mana 4/5 flyer that draws a card when you hit, or put a counter on itself. But that's still okay.
Yeah, it's still like a C plus B minus card that you're not going to cut. So yeah, it's that should tell you how powerful this is. That it's playable as the only bird in your deck.
Yeah. So like we did yesterday. If you haven't caught yesterday, or maybe it's been a while since you got to listen to the rares or the common and uncommon set review, we treated a lot of the cards as if we understand that yes, this is going in a deck that can mostly support it. You've got 5, 6, 7 birds, let's say. So we're gonna mostly grade things like that today as well. And for Castrol, I would give this card in a bird deck probably about an A, maybe an A minus, somewhere in that range. Not quite the A plus range, but
No, yeah, I'm like B plus to A minus.
Yeah.
I think it's decent, but not amazing. And it's notably, I don't think it's to the power level where you want to put like bad birds in your deck. Not
Right.
saying there are a ton of those, but like if it's between picking like a premium uncommon that's not of the type that you want versus like a filler bird and you have this in your pile, this does not change that equation by enough,
Nope.
right?
Totally agree with that. I think A minus is a really good grade for it, so I'm gonna stick with A minus.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, just quickly to address something in chat. We said, yeah, the question is, did he say only C plus in a bird a deck if this is the only bird? And yeah, that's about right. Like this still has the problem of being a 5 mana creature with no enter the battlefield effect. Again, if you don't have other birds, you're not getting that immediate hasty value. And time and again, even if the creature looks pretty good, big flyer underperforms if it doesn't have that. So that might be a little bit of where that disconnect is coming from. If you think this is just like way better than a C plus in a deck with no other birds. Anyways, next up we've got. Oops, sorry. Next up we've got Wrenn, the Relentless. This is the blue-black rat rare. This is 2 blue-black for a 3/4 legendary creature rat at rare. It's got Ward 2, and it says if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens with this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponent controlled that were exiled this turn. Okay, so that's like a bunch of word soup, but it's basically saying that at the beginning of your end step, you count the number of creatures that have died, and you make a pack rat, essentially, for each of those ones. Just a rat that gets bigger for all your other rats.
Yeah, and even the first one's going to be a 2/2 because of course this is a rat itself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, that's a really good point. So pretty powerful. Plays well as removal spells. Plays well just in combat. Your opponents don't want to trade. And it's at the beginning of each end step too. So blocking will trigger this. That's something I didn't even realize on first read actually.
Yeah, this is the right power level where like it's weird because there is no ETB for this, and I do think you want to be more aggressive in that you're like forcing combat to happen.
Right.
But if you're like playing, black red lizards and you're thinking, am I gonna play my my crystal grotto or whatever? Is it gonna give me a reason to splash? I think this is a pretty good splash.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, you can. Oh no, I guess sorry, you can't. I was gonna say you can play this post combat when the opponent doesn't know it's coming, but no, you can't do that because it needs the cards to be exiled. It needs to exist
Yes.
on the battlefield for this to be a thing. Okay, so I mean, it's not just surefire. You're gonna get a bunch of rats. Like you cast this, and then awesome things happen. But your opponent has to dance around this really quite a bit. Ward 2 is nice on this kind of creature. That's exactly the kind of fix I like for the problem I just talked about with the last card, or the quote unquote problem. Yeah, I think Friend's pretty good though. What grade would you want to give it?
I still think it's like an A minus, even though I
Yeah.
like it more than the last card, which is maybe why I should have stuck with B plus for Castrol. I'll go back and give Castrol a B plus, then
Sure,
I'll give
sure.
this thing a.
Yeah, card's good though. Like these, all these good gold cards, kind of like I mentioned at the top, I think are gonna get somewhere in this kind of grade range. And Ren's a good one. I'll join A minus.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we've got the Rakdos Lizard one, Gev Scaled Scorch. This is red black for a 3/2 legendary creature lizard. It's got Ward, pay 2 life, which is very helpful for having your opponent lose life in red black. Other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each opponent who lost life this turn. So just one in limited. Whenever you cast a lizard spell, Gev deals 1 damage to target opponent. So all of your lizard cards that care about have you dealt damage to your opponent this turn, or has your opponent lost life? All the creatures that have like an enter the battlefield effect based on those are just gonna trigger when you have Gev.
Yeah, and notably, like the bird card, you wanted a few birds. The rat card almost doesn't care, how many rats you have. Like making pat rats, whether they're 2/2s or 5/5s, you're still gonna probably win in a landslide. This thing is like a real reward for having a bunch of lizards because that trigger is going to happen before the creature comes into play, so they're all going to be bigger immediately. It's going to be like really annoying to play against this guy, and it's a 2-drop, which means it's less splashable by other color pairs. So another reward for being black red lizards. We talked about those maybe being one of the better decks yesterday, and cards like this are part of the reason why.
Yeah, this is just one heck of a lord. Like it's not only does it boost the abilities of all your other lizards, but even if they kill this, you still get to stick around. The counters stick around on the creatures that you cast. Card's really, really strong. This is the kind of thing where if lizards ends up being like the best deck or top 2 or whatever, this is like an A level card. It might just be an A minus, but it's in that range.
So what do you want to give it? Are you going to go A minus or
I'm
A?
going to go with A minus too. Yeah, so we've had a lot of kind of like low A grades so far, but I think that this might be the best out of them that we've seen so far, just as far as like how much you're getting for the efficiency, like the mana you're paying, but they're all quite good so far.
Yeah, I gave this an A. Like, I
Nice.
think the fact that this is there's only one lizard you're going to play on turn 1, and then you just play this on turn 2, and it like pre-lords everything and adds damage. I think this card's just great.
Yeah, no, totally agree. All right, so next up we've got another red-black card. This is the infamous Cruel Claw. 1 black-red for a mythic legendary creature. It's a weasel, so not a relevant creature type, so you're in for something good. So it's a 3/3 menace for 3. And it says, when it deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. Oof, wow.
Yeah, interesting. Like, it's not card advantage, which you
No.
expect from a mythic, but it's still like really good.
Yeah, usually I would almost always the card you hit is going to be better. Like a free whatever it is will be better than the worst card in your hand. So like you can pitch a land to this. That's totally something you can do. In the late game, it's still gonna be a threat. Like your opponent can't let this get through. In the early game, they need a removal spell or they have to risk a very risky double block. So yeah, I mean, not much to dislike here.
Yeah, if there's any color pair that you want a 3/3 menace in so far, I think like red black is the one that wants it.
That's true, yeah. Huh. So is this a B plus level card or in the A range? And again, I think this is an A level card. And I would just give Infamous Cruel Call an A. I think the games you just stick it on 3 and it hits just once even, you're gonna start to run away with the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll go A minus. I
Okay.
think it's like no protection is gonna hurt this thing.
That's true.
We've seen like Eladamri, and there's so many examples of like 3 mana 3/3s that look so good, but no protection, no ETB. It does mean they're just a removal magnet, and you basically have to play this on turn 3. Like you're gonna want the upside of it. So their first removal spell is just gonna eat this a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. What's up next? We've got a raccoon card.
Next is Muera, Trash Tactician. 1 red green for a 2/4 raccoon, legendary. At the beginning of your first main phase, add red or green for each raccoon you control. Whenever you expend 4, gain 3 life. And whenever you expend 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards.
Yeah, this one is not as overtly just like, wow, so good as some of the cards we've seen so far. But it's still pretty nice. Like, at least it's going to ramp you for 1, as long as you untap with it. And, of course, that helps you expend a little bit easier. Now, the expend 8, I imagine, won't happen almost ever. Unless you have a lot of raccoons and you just happen to be able to make a bunch of mana. But I would imagine you're going to be able to gain 3 most turns when this is on the battlefield. So sort of think of it like a reasonably statted mana dork that gains you some life and has the chance to be really explosive. Like if you go turn 2 raccoon into this and your opponent doesn't have an interaction spell, then you're just going to dump your hand.
Yeah, and if you do ever expend 8 because you have the mana, it's almost continuing to let you spend 8 again the following turns because it's until the end of your next turn. So the 2 cards you hit gives you another 3 cards to cast next turn. So the snowball potential on this is definitely there if you can get to that point of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this card is quite strong. I would give Mora a B. Are you willing to go any higher than that, or sound about right to you?
No, I don't want to go any higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that much better than like a 2/4 lifelink. Like it's better, but not that much better.
Yeah.
So
No, totally agree with that. Next up is another raccoon. It's Hugs, Grizzly Guardian. This is a funny card.
Not a raccoon.
Not a raccoon, yeah. Oh, okay, it's a badger. Yeah, it's a X red green creature. Kind of thought it was raccoon. Yeah. 5/5 trample. So you could just pay 4 mana for a 5/5 trample, but it's got that X cost. When Hugs enters the battlefield, exile the top X cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You can play those cards. You may play an additional land on each of your turns as just a static ability that Hugs gives you.
Yeah, this thing's tricky to cast. So what do you think the ideal number is for X on this?
Probably like 2.
I think so, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to go too high because then it's going to be too late in the game. I think you're if you cast this on turn 4 for 4 mana, you're pretty happy, but you're honestly not that sad if you can't. Like if you don't hit your second red to cast it exactly on turn 4, it's kind of nice that there's like a buyout for the hard mana cost, and that if it's your 6th or 7th land, you're still pretty happy to just cast this on curve.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that most of the time, like if you don't have your 5th land, I'm probably just playing this straight up. I mean, it obviously depends what else is in your hand, but if you have no other great way to spend 4 mana and no 5th land, like just play this.
Yeah.
Yeah, card's good. Good on curve if you can cast it. Good a little bit later. Also just has the potential to, if the game has gone really long, you X equals 4 or something. You're probably just easily winning that game.
That's a way to expend 8 for the last.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. Yeah, I think that you should consider Hugs an expensive card more than a 4 mana card, but that's okay. Like nothing wrong with that. I think I would give Hugs a minus as well. A lot of A minuses, but seems pretty good.
Okay, I wrote down B plus for myself, so pretty similar. It does make. We were asking about like some of the ramp stuff we saw yesterday. Where does that go? And this is a nice reason to play.
Yeah.
Like either the food that ramps on enter or leaves play, or even just the 2 mana 1/3 that like taps for mana of any color. I think like this is a nice top end to some kind of rampish strategy.
It's funny too because we were talking yesterday about all the good raccoon cards are just generically good cards and will get poached by other decks. Finally, we have one that cannot happen because it's a red green card, but it's not actually a raccoon. So
it is also a mythic, so it's
Sorry, say again.
It's also a mythic. So
it's also a mythic. Yeah. So you want to land on B plus for Hugs?
Yeah, I'm gonna go B plus.
Yeah, I'll join you there. Actually, I think B plus sounds about right to me too. Phineas, Ace Archer is up next. This is white green for a 2/2 rare. It's a legendary creature rabbit. He's got vigilance and reach. And when Phineas attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control that's a token or a rabbit. Then if creatures you control have power 10 or greater, you draw a card.
So tricky because you're not always going to be able to get in with this thing.
No.
It doesn't have any like combat based abilities, right? Like no evasion, no protection, doesn't grow itself.
This one seems a lot less exciting than the last few we've seen.
Yeah, I could see spots where you just throw this into combat and like basically give it up because you're getting a bunch of counters and a card out of it. So it's like a way to cycle and grow your team, but not very likely to do. Like this is not a very snowbally card. I don't think you're going to be able to. This will be the first thing that gets blocked in every combat.
Right. If you do have a trick to get it through once and then twice, not even through, you just have to attack. Like that is pretty nice, but you're totally right that it's just not gonna. It's not self-sufficient. It does need a little bit of help.
Yeah, the fact that the green and white common tricks both protect this really well, like the white ones 2/2 and potentially indestructible, and the green ones +1/+3 for 1 mana. It does mean that some opponents are sometimes going to have to throw a lot of power in front of this to make sure it dies. So it's like pretty terrifying on turn 2, and still pretty terrifying late because your board might be wide enough.
Yeah, like
I wouldn't knock it down too much.
No, I agree. I think that scenario you just said is very, very relevant. Like it's not a bad late game draw. Like it might kind of read like it is because cashing it in is fine. Okay, I think all told that there is some explosiveness to this if you can just you can snowball with it certainly. If your opponent they stumble, things line up wrong. So there's something to be said for that. And it's pretty good late, and it's just like a good cheap card. I think I'm going to end up giving Phineas a B.
Yeah, I wrote down B as well.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, don't be afraid to cash it in. That's only very important. Next one's pretty cool. Lunar Convocation. This is black-white for an enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. It also says at the beginning of your end step, if you gained and lost life this turn, create a 1/1 black flying creature token. It's a bat. And it also has an ability, 1 in a black, pay 2 life to draw a card. So you gotta pay some mana generally and draw a card if you want to get a bat, because as we looked at yesterday, there's not too many ways for you to just lose life naturally on your turn. So this is going to be the thing that helps you lose life. But it's pretty nice. Like, the ability to pay life and then get a bat to, if you're getting attacked with the 4/4, you're essentially gaining more life than you lost to draw a card. Or that you would have lost.
Okay, I'll ask you for a grade then, I guess.
Yeah. It is a tricky one. It's a powerful one, but a little bit finicky, I think. I want to like it. I think I'm going to start low-ish, give this a C+. Because I think it's gonna. It reads to me like it's gonna be a little clunkier than you might like it to be.
Okay, I have walked you into the gap at least, because I'm a lot lower on this thing.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so first of all, if you're not if you're just having the card as an enchantment that is 1 in a black, pay 2 life, draw a card, it's
good.
like terrible, right? And so it doesn't do anything unless you're gaining life.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're gaining life, it's not really doing anything unless you're also paying the mana.
Right.
Like, so you kind of need to have the perfect storm of things happen for this.
Yes, definitely.
And I just think, like, it's like you're not really going to want to cast it on turn 2. So when is it coming down? And then, like, it's basically 1 in a black. Maybe the average case is your opponent loses 3 life. You draw a card, pay 2 life, and make a bat over the course of the game for like 4 mana, which is okay, but not really worth it.
Yeah, I think Black-White's going to have a pretty good time being able to stall out the game, just stall at the ground, get in the air. And that's where you can imagine this kind of card being pretty good. But is this better than like any good uncommon or even some commons that we've seen for those decks? I don't necessarily think so.
Yeah, I think you need like 3/4 of your deck to be, gaining you life for this type of thing to be getting there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little high, but like a lot of your deck needs to gain life.
Yeah. What's your grade on this? Because I don't hate my C+ in the deck it belongs in. But that...
I'm going to go D+. Like, I think most black-white decks should
just
not
aren't going to play this. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can definitely buy that. I think that where I will land on it is I think there's going to be decks that will happily play this card, but I think I agree with you that those aren't going to, like, maybe 1 out of 5 black decks are going to want to play this card. Or, sorry, black-white decks. Yeah. Okay. I'll just stay with my C+ though, just for posterity's sake. Next one here. This is a good one. Zoraline, Cosmos Caller. 1 black-white for a 3/3 legendary creature bat at rare. It's got flying and vigilance. And it says, whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain 1 life. And that's just not, whenever 1 or more, it's for every bat you control. If that attacks, you gain a life for each one. When Zoraline... Including itself. When Zoraline attacks or enters, you may pay white, black, and 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So you attack with a 2-drop on turn 2. That trades. You cast this. Can't do on turn 3, but on turn 5, bring it back. Or just anything you traded off early. Or, you play this on turn 3, you attack on turn 4, do that. Seems pretty darn good.
Yes, this card looks amazing.
Yeah. Just like super efficient, 3/3 flying vigilant body, gaining you life, buys you cards back if you want. Yeah, card's great.
Yeah, this is like another A minus. Are you going higher than that?
Yeah, I was just gonna give it an A minus too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like you said, all the things that are slight knocks against this kind of card, like it's a good scary rare that'll often just eat a removal spell when it comes down, but it's not a huge knock against it. So A minus for Zorline. You agree?
Yep, I'm with you.
Awesome. All right, what is up next?
Amelia the Seed Miser. 1 black green for a 3/3 squirrel. It has menace. Other squirrels you control also have menace. And whenever you sacrifice 1 or more food, create a 1/1 green squirrel token. You can also pay 2 and forage to put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control.
Ooh, nice. And of course, if you sacrifice a food, or sorry, when you forage, you it'll stack in a way where you get the token, then you get a counter, on top of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, really strong.
As long as you're foraging with food.
Yes, sorry, with food.
Because you can also just exile 3 cards from your graveyard.
We've seen a lot of 3-mana, like almost getting LCI vibes slightly with the number of just like 3-mana. You should probably kill this thing, or else really bad things are going to happen to you. Kind of rare so far.
Yeah, there's some truth to that.
Yeah,
But this is where you want the power to be,
Mhm.
like the gold rewards for that archetype. Like,
yeah,
because
for sure.
this is not a card that goes in, your green blue frogs deck,
No.
right? Like, it can and it'll be okay, but it's not going to be nearly as good.
Yeah, and this just like, I guess you do need to have a decent amount of food for this to be really exciting. Because even in your, like, if you're just using that second ability there, and exiling stuff from your grave, in your black green deck, you're not necessarily just gonna have like a bunch of squirrels. It's gonna be your more prevalent creature type, but it's not guaranteed that even half of your things will be squirrels. So gotta be careful about that too.
I think you can expect over half of your creatures to be that type. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Is that, like, you'll have about 8 at a minimum of a single creature type. More likely, I think, like 10 to 12 in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a good average to just throw out. And given that we have that average, what do you want to give it?
Like, this is probably a B plus.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. B plus. We got a lot in that like B plus A minus range, and I'll join you at the B plus. Yeah, I think especially because it's not just like you can throw this into any deck, and like you said, this is kind of the theme that we've seen so far. It goes it goes in a certain spot and it'll be good there, but won't just be busted if you just are able to cast it. So B plus.
Yeah,
For...
like so far, A plus from design team, right? Like, this is gold cards. Every creature type seems to have a good rare that's gonna hopefully go to that person at the, like, maybe they won't get it 8th, but like you can probably expect to see this 3rd, 4th,
Yep.
5th at least if you're the green black drafter, and like that's exactly what I want to see.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you want. Igra, I think is how you pronounce it. Igra, Eater of All. This is 3 black green for a 6/6 elemental cat at Mythic. It's a legendary creature. It's got a word cost of sacrifice a food. Also says other creatures are food in addition to their other types, and have 2 tap sack and other food tax, gain 3 life. That's all creatures, by the way. Your opponent's creatures and your creatures. It also says whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Igra, Eater of All. Whew.
Yeah, so no, like, combat abilities, but this thing is basically unkillable through damage.
Right.
Because all of your creature, like, if they throw something in front of this, you can just sacrifice 2 of your food,
Yep.
or like creature food or regular food, to make this thing absolutely massive.
Yeah, just gonna get so large so quickly. Wow. Yeah, so they basically need a black kill spell, and they're not getting out of it without zacking your creature. Yeah, card's really, really strong. I mean, there's some board states where you're like, okay, whatever, I'll sack a small token, But there's going to be some board states where it's just like, wow, I have to actually sacrifice a real creature and have the removal spell on the spot here.
Yeah, and even like if you're throwing like a fight or a bite spell at this, like
Mm-hmm.
the minimum you have to deal it is 8,
Yep.
right? And that's if both players are tapped out, basically.
Yeah, I guess Polywallop is probably your best chance at actually killing it through damage at the turn that comes down. The one that deals double damage from a creature you control.
Well, there's not a lot of huge frogs though, right?
That's
Like,
true, yeah, and you're not going to play that card very often in your non-frog decks. Man, yeah, card is really strong. Also, just, of course, there's no restrictions here. It counts combat, counts your opponent's removal, or your removal spells. Just whatever a food, aka creature, is put into the graveyard. Put 2 counters on this thing.
yeah, it does give your opponents a good amount of time
Mm-hmm.
because they can just if they just have a bunch of offspring or rabbit tokens or whatever lying around, every single one of those creatures can like block sack, right? Like they
Right.
can chump and gain free, and so you will have like this thing will keep growing and it'll become absolutely massive. But if your opponent's digging to their banishing light or the burying books equivalent or whatever, like they will have time for this. So
Mm-hmm.
if this had any combat based ability, it would be like an A plus.
Right.
But I don't think it's quite there.
Yeah, I think so too. Like literally anything. I think even like vigilance might be good enough to push it up to that range. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Igra going back between A and A minus, and I think it's probably just good enough. Like that flexibility of also of here's something we didn't even mention yet, but you cast this when you're a little bit low on life, and just you have that ability too to block stack. Like say the opponent's a red white deck and they're or a green white deck going a little bit wide, and they can just attack around that. Well, if you're blocking, then you can go all right, blocks my smallish thing, sack at game 3. I eat probably multiple things in the process. So it does sort of stabilize you in some ways too. I think I'm going to just end up giving it an A. It's also a really splashable card, which is something that we haven't seen so far.
It also gives you tons of like you can now forage with every single creature you have on the
Yeah,
battlefield.
that's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, I like A.
Yeah,
You want to join
I'm
me there?
giving it. Yep, yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. What's our next one here?
Clement, probably the Worrywart, 1 green blue for a 3/3 legendary frog. It has vigilance. Whenever it or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. And frogs you control have tap for green or blue. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell.
Okay, so there's no shortage of ways to pick up your frogs in this set, and a rare as well. And yeah, it gives you some nice options. You're not always going to want to pick something up, but I think pretty often if you've got, like we talked about yesterday, the good cheap ones, like the 1 mana 0/2 that puts a counter on something, gains a life, or the 2/2 that draws, or sorry, 2 mana card that draws a card. Just being able to always pick those up is pretty nice.
Yeah, Pawn Prophet and Sunshower Druid are the real glue for the frogs
Yeah.
deck, for sure.
Yeah, good calling out the names already.
I spent a lot of time looking at these frogs, okay?
Yeah.
You can also just like start doing ridiculous like chains with this, right?
Yeah, you like cast a 4. Yeah, you just like keep on going. If the board is stalled out and that's the way you feel like you can grind out the game, you just go like 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, like let's say you have 4 mana,
Mhm.
okay, on turn 4, and you have a Pawn Prophet and a Sunshower Druid, right? You cast this ability on the stack, you target your Pawn Prophet, you tap the Pawn Prophet for mana. There's 2 mana.
Mhm.
Bounces the Pawn Prophet. You cast the Pawn Prophet with your 1 remaining mana. Tap your Sunshower Druid for mana, bounce that,
Yeah.
and like you can keep going all the way down the chain.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing that one of the small issues or things you have to kind of work around, puzzles to solve, I guess, when you're playing this frog deck is, well, you don't want to keep picking things up, even though it gives you value. You're taking a tempo hit, and Clement kind of negates that in a lot of ways by making all your frogs tap for mana. So that's really really cool part.
A 3/3
Sorry, say that again.
got decent. And it's a 3/3 for 3.
Yeah,
Sorry,
3 for 3. Vigilance, totally fine. Yeah. All right. It's a definitely a build around card, as in to reach full potential, because it is just you can tap for mana by itself. It's fine.
Yeah, like I don't think this, even though it's not that much of a benefit for frogs, I don't think you want to, no, again, all these unintended puns. I don't think you want to splash.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And yeah, I think it's great to point out what you just said. Like this frog deck really does rely on those two key commons, the 1-drop and the 2-drop Pawn Prophet and the Sunshower Druid. Yeah, okay, so what do you want to give Clement in a deck that has those kind of cards?
I'm gonna give it like a B.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Sweet card though, really sweet card.
Yeah, yeah, I like this design.
We've got another cool design here. Dream Dew Entrancer. This is 2 green blue for a 3/4 reach frog, get rare. When it enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. Okay. If you control that creature, draw 2 cards.
So green blue just randomly gets 2 rares. Like all the other color pairs get 1.
Yeah, not sure what that's about.
And it's just pandering to my demands. Because I love it. This card's also excellent.
Yeah, well, no, like I said, they really wanted to make sure the weird oddball draft archetype actually panned out this time. Yeah, so it's a cool card. Basically, you can lock down your opponent's thing for 3 turns, which is a lot of turns. Like 3 turns is quite a while. Or the joke here, of course, is you lock down one of your own things and then just pick it up again sometime soon. So you're not actually locking it down for good. Or for 3 turns.
Or you just pick up this. Like there's,
Oh, yeah. Wow, I didn't even think about that.
There's so many ways to rebuy this ridiculous ETB. Like, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Wow, yeah. Huh. So wait, am I reading this wrong? When it enters the battlefield, tap it to 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters. Okay. If you control... So you could just target itself in, like, every... Like, you could just pay 4 mana, draw 2, as long as you have a way to pick this up every turn.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow, yeah, really sweet design. Even sweeter than I thought at first. Okay, so what do you want to give this one? Because I think this one's probably better than Clement.
Oh, what? Much better.
Yeah, much
thing,
better.
Like, busted. I think this thing's like an A.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, that's a sick one. I'll happily join your A there. Yeah, A for Dream Dude and Chancer.
This is pretty close to like just a Chupacabra, right?
Yeah.
Like locking something down for 3 turns.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you ignore the text on your side, even if it was just stun something for 3 turns and nothing else, like the ability to, that's a huge tempo swing on a 3/4, and you can rebuy it pretty easily.
Yeah, you rebuy it and either keep locking down the thing that's that you chose to lock down, or it's like Icy Manipulator where you just go, okay, now that's the best thing. I pick this up and target that. Okay, no, that's the best thing. They're 6/6 or whatever.
Yeah. If you have enough, like we saw some of the blue, more expensive uncommons yesterday have some really powerful ETBs,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering if like we were a little too low on the sorcery blink uncommon.
Interesting. Yeah. Blink in this thing's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like if you can blink this for 1 mana and draw a card and lock down something else for 3 turns. Like,
yeah, that's...
Or you can target this first, draw the 2, and then blink it, untap it, and then hit something of theirs. Like, oh.
I am getting like I already said this yesterday, and I know you're in the same boat, but I am so excited for this frog deck now. Like, there's some really good cards, and it seems really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, A for Dream Dew and Transfer. I like it. Next up, we've got a Planeswalker, and if you haven't seen, all the Planeswalkers visiting Bloomburrow have turned into fuzzy little animals themselves. Ral, Crackling Wit, who is an otter, is a 2 blue-red, 4 loyalty mythic Planeswalker. Ral's got a static ability. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral. 3 abilities here. +1, make a 1/1 blue and red otter creature token with prowess. -3, draw 3 cards, then just discard 2 cards. -10, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with instant and sorceries you cast have Storm. And if you haven't come across Storm before, it means whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each spell that was cast before it this turn.
This is a lot of loyalty and a very powerful plus ability.
Yeah, definitely. Huh.
Like it starts with basically 5 loyalty and a 1/1 prowess, and then you untap with it. It goes to 6 plus the number of spells you have. Like it's not that hard to just ultimate this like 2 turns after casting it.
Yeah, we were looking for real reasons to draft blue red yesterday, and this is a pretty good one.
It's extremely good in blue red, but this will also anyone's going to
Just
play
be
this,
good.
right?
Yeah,
Like
no, totally.
yeah, like well, I was talking yesterday about reasons to look for some of the splash colors, and yeah, like, any red or any blue deck will pick this up.
And also, the joke we had yesterday was, oh, like blue black doesn't enable prowess or sorry threshold as well as like red or green might. And, another off color card for enabling threshold, that draw 3 discard 2 mode.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to get threshold.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna start Ral. I think a B plus. I don't think it quite gets to the A range for me. It's a lot of loyalty, you're right, but the turn it comes down, you're only protecting it with a 1/1 if you don't have anything else. So you're gonna have to have a pretty good setup for it to not take damage the turn comes down. Then again, it's not that likely to die that turn, but still, it's gonna not be that hard for your opponent to combat with it if this is one of the only things you have going.
Okay, I'll just go straight A for this
Oh, you're
thing.
just
I
gonna
think
give it
it's
a higher grade than me, eh? All
yeah,
right, yeah, yeah. Like I said, I like the card. Just slightly unenthused about that plus. That's all. Like it reminds me of the Jaya from DMU, if you remember that card, and that card also looked extremely good and kind of played out just like that. Whereas, like, yeah, it's pretty good if you have an empty board or the opponent's got like not that great of a board. Your board is reasonably defensible. But yeah,
yeah, I see this as being like a better, well, not better, a different like Elspeth Knight Errant or whatever it
mm,
is. Like +1, starting on 4 loyalty, turn 4, and then it doesn't jump your other creatures, but it does grow even faster. Like
yeah,
yeah, yeah we can disagree.
yeah.
I'm happy to see where this ends up,
Okay, yeah.
but I
I'll
think
stick with my B
okay.
plus.
Okay.
We've got Alania, Divergent Storm up next. This is 3 blue red for a 3/5 legendary creature otter at rare. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's the first instant spell, the first sorcery spell, or the first otter spell, other than Alania that you cast this turn, you may have target opponent draw a card. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So kind of like you get to all your spells can be replicated if you gift them a card.
Yeah, and I think the wording on this means that if you cast an instant, a sorcery, and an otter, you'll get 3 triggers on this, right? Like
Yes, I believe so.
the first instant, the first sorcery, and the first otter will all trigger this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's cool.
But like it's a 3/5 for 5, and it's not all upside,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like gifting a card is that's a big deal. I don't
Yep.
think this thing's amazing.
No, I don't think it's great. I think it's cool, but I don't think it's great. Like the body's eh. There are going to be some spells that like it's the same thing we've been talking about with all the gift cards. Like you have to look and go, is this worth giving my opponent a random card? Some spells, yes, it'll be worth doubling your 5 mana spell, but I would actually guess most spells, no. I think most
Right.
like 3 and below spells, you maybe 2 and below spells, but kind of there's a line somewhere there. I think that does not often pan out well for you.
Yeah, I was gonna go as low as like C minus
Yeah.
for this. I don't think all your blue red decks want it.
No, I also would do that. Yeah, it's a May ability, but then you're just paying 5 mana for a 3/5, right? So, yeah, I was even gonna go a little bit lower and give it a D plus. I actually think this card's not very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
All
Yeah.
right, D plus for Alania. Next up, this one is very good. Mabel, Heir to Cragflame. This is 1 red white for a 3/3 legendary creature mouse at rare. Other mice you control get +1/+1. And when Mabel enters, you create Cragflame, a legendary colorless equipment artifact token with equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance, trample, and haste. The equip cost is 2.
So this is one of those three mana 3/3s that does have an ETB.
Yes. And a good one.
Yeah, I think you splash this, right? Like even if you don't care about the first line of text, it's still good,
Yeah,
right?
I would say so. Like you're like white green decks, you're probably gonna be pretty happy to splash this card just fine. I
And if it's in mice, like not only is the +1/+1 insane, it's also giving you a source of Valiant.
Yep. Yep. Just remember Valiant like equipment is so good for Valiants. Just because like you can just keep turboing it basically. I mean it's once per turn, but for as many Valiant things that you have. And the
Yeah, I
equipment's
think
good. Like, the equipment's a strong equipment by itself.
yeah, and this is just like an A, right?
Yeah, I think Mabel's just an A. I agree.
Yeah. Right.
Nice, yeah, great card. All right, next up we've got some 3-color cards. Glorb Calamity's Augur is the first one. This is Sultai mana, black, green, blue, for a legendary creature, frog, wizard noble at Mythic. It's a 2/4 death touch, and it says you can look at the top card of your library at any time. You can play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library, and you can tap it to surveil 2. Okay,
I like this thing.
yeah, pretty nice. It's in colors that will want you to splash, slower green colors.
Yeah, and there is fixing, like, this is exactly the type of stuff I want from this file, where it gives you a reason to do something a little bit different aside from just a color pair creature type, right?
And here's our threshold enabler. Like, this is an actual good threshold enabler too.
And honestly, if you're playing like blue, black, green, and you get like cash grabs too, like that might be the way that you're supposed to build the
Threshold.
the threshold.
Yeah. Yeah, it just plays nicely into that. Yeah, it's got a nice body. 2/4 death touch is really nice. Playing lands at the top is really nice. Yeah, there's nothing much to dislike about the card other than the slightly tough mana cost.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think it's that, like, if you got the fixing lands, I guess specifically the Haven and the Bell, the 1-mana artifact, like, pretty easy to cast on turn 3. A little, obviously you can't do it with the Grotto because that asks you to filter. So there's not infinite fixing in this set if you didn't catch yesterday. Just to kind of put that out there as far as how easy it is to cast this on turn 3. But I also don't think it's going to be incredibly hard or anything.
No, I'm fine using the Grotto to play this on turn 4.
Sure.
But notably, the 2-mana Changeling also curves really nicely into this, because
That is
a
true. Yeah, that is a great point. More love for that 2-mana Changeling you were talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we gonna give Glarb? I think I'm gonna settle on like a B for Glarb. Nothing phenomenal, but just a nice little value card. Gets a little bit of a knock because of the mana cost.
Yeah, I wrote B+.
Nice.
I think it's like really good, but the mana's tricky.
Balin the Haymaker is up next. This is Naya colors, red, green, white, for a 4/3 legendary creature rabbit at rare. It's got 3 abilities here. Tap 2 untapped tokens you control to add a mana of any color. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control to draw a card. Tap 4 untapped tokens you control, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Balin the Haymaker, and it gains trample until end of turn. And these are all as many times as you have tokens. None of these are once per turn abilities.
Right, and they're also instant speed too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no restrictions on any of these.
This has to get a build around grade.
Yes, for sure.
And so is this? I think you're fine playing this with less tokens than the vehicle that we saw yesterday, where you like, because this is still a 4/3 for 3.
It's functional.
But you do want to be able to get that second ability. Like two tokens isn't really doing it. 3 tokens is when you're starting to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, most commonly it's like a green, white, splash, red card. Probably not that likely to be in any other deck, though. Like, you're not going to be splashing this in your raccoon deck, I would imagine, and your red-white deck doesn't want to splash that much.
Yeah, because the tokens are going to come. Green gives you squirrels and food. White gives you squirrels and food. Red doesn't really give you anything aside from like a couple offspring. There's not. I don't think there's treasures. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, so.
Yeah, very, very sparse treasures in this set. Yeah, card is good, but it's not. For a build around card, it doesn't seem like over the top busted to me. So Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
It also has the line of text: your opponents can no longer gift you any fish.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Food, I guess.
That is true.
If you get gifted food or fish before you cast this, your opponent's just going to be, smacking their forehead as soon as you put it down.
This, what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Geared from OTJ, where it's like, yeah, you can like see some potential there, and it kind of plays in the same Naya tokeny space, but it never ended up being like amazing.
Yeah,
and I think this card is kind of like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with it. It's definitely less powerful than Glard.
Yeah. So, want to give this like a build around C+?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, sounds good though. All right, our last 3-color card here is Helga, Skittish Seer. This is Bant mana, green, white, blue, for a 1/3 legendary creature, frog druid at Mythic. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, you draw a card, then you gain a life, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on Helga. You can also tap Helga to add X mana of any color, any one color, where X is Helga's power. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells mana value 4 or greater, or creature spells with X in their mana costs. So she always taps for 1 mana because she's a 1/3.
Yeah, but only for certain types
Yes.
of cards.
Another pretty finicky card that costs 3 colors. That isn't like how many cards are you going to have in your deck that trigger this would be my question. And I don't think you're going to have that many. And if you draw 1 card off of it, you've made your money. But,
right, and also you need to cast this first.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really tricky on this. Yeah,
I think it's just got enough awkwardness in it that I don't think we can really give it that high of a grade. It's not a terrible card, but it's a 3-color card that needs setup, and the setup is a little bit finicky.
It's also kind of weird that it's not like expend 4. It's you need exactly the creature with mana value 4 or greater.
Yeah.
Question for you: if you pay a 2-drop with offspring, yeah, does this trigger?
No. It only if you have a 2-drop that has 2 mana offspring, no, it won't trigger.
Won't trigger. Okay.
Yeah, I think this one reads to me like a commander mostly card. I think it's going to, you're going to see it on the battlefield once in a while, but I don't think it's no pull into these colors or splashing or anything. So I would give Helga like a D+ probably.
Yeah, I wrote down synergy C-.
Yeah, about the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so gold cards over. Pretty powerful, like we said. Some hits, some misses in there for sure. We're moving on to the monocolored cards now. Starting with white. Dawn's Truce is the first one here. This is 1 and a white for an instant at rare. Gift a card. You and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. And if a gift was promised, permanents you control also gain indestructible until end of turn. Yeah. Very whatever.
I think you'd rather have the common combat trick than this. Like in
the 1 mana one.
Yeah, I think this is pretty bad.
Unless I'm missing something, this is just worse than Heroic Intervention, like where it didn't ask you to gift a card to get hexproof and indestructible, and that card was medium. So I think Dawn's Truce gets like a D.
I'm going to go D-.
Yep, sounds good. Yep. Next up is Essence Channeler. This is 1 and a white for a Bat Cleric at rare. It's a 2/1. It says, as long as you've lost life this turn, Essence Channeler has Flying and Vigilance. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Essence Channeler. And when the Channeler dies, you put its counters on target creature you control. Cool.
It is cool. It's not that easy to lose life, though, right?
No, it's not at all. This is mostly like an Ajani's Pride Mate that puts its counter somewhere when it dies.
Yeah, like there's a couple of black commons. There's like the draw spell and the murder that do it. So I think that this is still okay, but if you can give it Flying and Vigilance, like this one's I find tricky. I don't know where I'm going with this, I guess.
I think I would still give this quite a high grade because we've had a Johnny's Pride Mate or similar cards in previous sets that have had life game themes, and those have just been like pretty good. So if I never gave this flying, I think I'd be pretty if this didn't have that flying text, I would give it like a B-, maybe even a B. And with that flying text, once in a while, it gets into like the solid B range for me.
Yeah, okay. I think I agree with you. Like it also, there's the 2-drop bird bat that gives you a life anytime a creature comes into play. Like this can just come down as a 3/2, and then dies and puts it on something. This thing is nice.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give Essence Channeler a B. I think it's about that.
Sure,
I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Yep, I'll join you.
Cool. Valley Quest Caller is up next. 1 and a white for a 2/3 rabbit warrior at rare. Whenever one or more other rabbit, bats, birds, or mice you control enters, scry 1. That's the white creature types. Other rabbits, bats, birds, and mice you control get +1/+1.
Yeah, I like that they made these inclusive.
Me too. Yeah, it makes it so that
you're happy to pick this, pack one, pick one, and it doesn't like lock you in.
Yeah, and this is a whole cycle, by the way, of these
Yeah.
lords that affect all the creature types of their color. I think they're all pretty good. This one included. It's good. Got fine stats. 2 mana, 2/3. And yeah, that's scry's gonna add up. Like it's gonna be, I'd say, over half of your creatures are gonna have you scry when they enter.
Notably, like all of these, maybe the exception of birds, but rabbits, bats, and mice are all going to have you with high creature counts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so some of these are kind of better than others, just based on how many creatures you expect to have in your deck.
Yeah, especially with rabbits, like you're appreciating the lord effect a little more than you might with bats, for example. Just having
Yeah.
multiple things that make multiple rat tokens.
Right, rabbits probably like the best one, and then mice and frogs are maybe like the second, third best, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but really
This is
good overall. Really solid. Not busted, but just good. I would give Valley Quest Color a B plus.
B plus. I was going to go to the A range for this. I'm going to go A minus.
Okay, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
strong card. What is up next? Our first rare class.
Airtaker's Talent. 2 and a white for an enchantment class. Whenever one or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Then you can pay a white to put it to level 2. When this class becomes level 2, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. And you can pay 3 and a white to move it to level 3 to give creature tokens you control +2/+2 permanently. And
Ooh.
notably, I don't know if you mentioned this yesterday, but leveling classes is only done as a sorcery.
Right, we didn't actually, so good call out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So it's a super you have to be doing this thing build around, and this is always the kind of card that I think people underestimate how many cards you need to actually put this in your deck and it be good. It can't just be like, yeah, I have some tokens. You need somewhere in the neighborhood of 8, 9, 10 things that do this.
Yeah.
And if you do, I think it's pretty good. Like you get to, on the second level, you've most likely drawn 2 cards.
Well, because it also, the second level gives you a card.
It gives
too.
you a card, yeah. That's a big part of it here.
Yeah, notably, you do want to be making rabbits with this rather than like, because you can do it with food. But if you're doing it with food, that level 3 doesn't do anything.
Right. Yeah, so I think
You still count food towards the number you need to make this playable because
Mhm.
it's going to draw you the cards. But you do want some rabbit tokens for this,
yeah,
or some offspring at least.
yeah, I definitely agree. So I would treat this as a very you need to be tokening, and the number I'm going to throw out I think is like 11, 12-ish, probably at the bare minimum 10. And if you're there, I think it's a good but not busted card. Like a B
Yeah.
B minus C plus kind of card.
So you want to give it like a build around C plus?
Yeah, I think build around C plus for Caretaker's Talent. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I do like this is the kind of thing I was hoping to
Mhm.
find where it gives you. You're still going to want rabbit tokens anyways in green white, but it kind of pushes the needle more towards drafting slightly differently.
Yep. Ooh, Jackdaw Savior is up next. This is 2 and a white for a 3/1 flyer, bird cleric at rare. When it or another creature you control with flying dies, return another target creature with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield.
So kind of a bird payoff, but also just good in basically any deck.
Yeah, it wants you to have 2 drops basically.
Yeah.
You're gonna play this in all your white decks. Just the 3 mana 3/1 flyer is not that bad.
And to battlefield, not to hand, because we had
Mhm.
that in Brothers War that returned lesser artifacts that kind of was hard to get working a lot of the time.
Scrap Trawler. Yeah.
Yeah, Dollar, which always seemed like it should have been better than it was. But this thing puts them to play, and there's a lot of tiny creatures in this set.
Yeah, it doesn't even get that much better in a flyer deck, is the thing, because they're just going to kill this first before they kill anything else.
Well, you can keep this out of combat. Like if
Mhm.
you have one of the like 5 mana birds, and then it dies, then it can actually return another cheaper bird. Like
Yeah.
you can keep going down the chain with birds on this too.
And it's not even a finality counter, so you could just keep reusing the birds, like whatever you've brought back. If you are getting back flying creatures, and somehow you then you go down the chain and then you finally cast a 4-drop flyer, start the chain again. Not gonna happen all that often because I imagine the game's either gonna be over or this thing will have died by that point. But
Yeah, or bats, as chat
yeah,
mentions. Like
yep,
most of the bats, or I guess all the bats have flying too.
yeah,
So
true. Yeah, so this is gonna reach its peak in 2 out of the 4 white decks, and then
Mhm.
just be pretty good in the other one. So yeah, I would give Jackdaw Savior a B plus. I think it's gonna be really good.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm with you there.
Sweet. Salvation Swan is up next. A callback to Restoration Angel. This is 3 and a white for a 3/3 bird cleric at rare. It's got flying and flash, so very similar stats already to Restoration Angel, just missing a point of toughness. And has the ability when it enters or another bird you control enters, exile up to 1 target creature you control without flying. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter in the beginning of the next end step. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a nice one.
So notably, if you target a changeling, it's gonna like loop its, well, not like multiple triggers, right? Because it'll be a non-creature. It'll come back. It'll come back with flying as a bird and trigger something else.
Wait. You lost me. Say it again.
Okay, so you play this. You target your 2/1 changeling
Yeah.
because it doesn't have
Oh,
flying.
I see. Yep.
It
Yep.
leaves. It comes back. It is a bird, so it triggers this thing again, and you
Mm-hmm.
can blink something else and give something else flying too.
Yeah, that is exactly how that'll work. Chat's also saying a good splash in a frog deck, which, yeah, I guess that is pretty
Yeah,
true. Just blinking,
yeah,
blinking your frog ETBs.
for sure. Yeah, it might even be at its best there.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah. Like also just for those who haven't played with Restoration Angel, one of the main play patterns is just hold up mana on turn 4. Sometimes your opponent goes for a removal spell on one of your creatures, or they use a combat trick, and then you go, all right, save my creature, either if I was going to die in combat or to a removal spell. And if they don't do that, you just flash in this one. Maybe you get a good ETB effect that you've blinked. If not, even if there's no good ETBs, your 2-drop gets flying. So you're just going to cast this on turn 4 when it's open in your opening hand so much of the time. But sometimes you're going to get even more value than you might expect if they do go for a removal spell.
Yeah, and they very intentionally did not put a pacifism or
Mm.
charm or whatever in the set because it would just get blown out so often.
Yeah,
X
they're
cards.
moving away from that, thankfully. I think the last few sets have not had too many of those. Oh, yeah, that's also a very good point. Chat points out that there's sometimes you're going to cast on your opponent's end step to
Right.
maybe play around a sorcery speed removal spell, but sometimes you're not going to want to do that if you want to have the creature you're blinking come back for your turn.
Yeah, you'll need to set a stop at second main an arena
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing this.
Yeah, that's the difference between that and Restoration Angel if you're used to Restoration Angel. In any case, Salvation Spawn's great, and I'm going to give it an A.
I was gonna go A minus.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Card. I feel like this happens like, so many of the cards we've just seen have just been like, yeah, about the same range. Card's really good, though, and I will say the same for this one. All right, what is up next?
Whisker Veil Forerunner, 3 and a white for a 3/4 mouse. It has Valiant whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, which we'll just read once today because that's all that Valiant is. In this case, you're going to look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature with mana value 3 or less from among them, put it onto the battlefield if it's your turn. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in a random order.
Yeah, this one seems okay. It's straight up. It's got the 4 mana, no enter the battlefield, no protection problem. And
Extremely powerful Valiant trigger, though.
yes, just drawing cards for all of your triggers is nice.
And there's no shortage of ways to trigger this.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and the majority of the time, like, you're just not going to have, in your red-white or just white-X decks, you're just not going to have that many creatures that cost 4 or more, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, card is tempting. For as much as I hate these kind of cards, no ETB, no protection, it's definitely tempting to use something.
Yeah, it's like a B.
Yeah, I was gonna go a little bit lower than that. I think just like a B minus.
Okay.
Yeah. I do put a lot of weight on that, so B minus for Whisker Veil Forerunner. Still a strong card though. we've got the first of a cycle here, a mythic cycle of elementals. Beza the Bounding Spring. This is 2 white for a legendary creature, Elemental Elk at Mythic. This is a 4/5, so 4 mana 4/5. When it enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands than you. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. Create 2 blue fish tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. And draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. Whew.
Yeah, they should have made this thing a goat because this thing's amazing.
Boom, baby. Yeah. Yeah, this thing's really, really good. So let's imagine, like, you're on the play, you cast this on turn 4, what's often going to happen? You probably will draw a card, almost certainly, if you're on the play.
Right.
So just 4/5, draw a card. You may or may not have more creatures than the opponent. You may or may not have more life than the opponent. You won't get a treasure token. So basically, if you're on the draw, you get the card, or so you get the treasure, and if you're on the play, you get the card, which is exactly what you want, because when you're on the draw, you're down the tempo. When you're on the play, you're down the resources. Or
Well, I think you're almost never gonna get the treasure because, like, even if you're on the draw, you're gonna cast this on turn.
sure, yeah, you'd have to like cast it on 5 and then play your land drop or whatever. But that's
Yeah.
not
So
ideal.
it's like the standard case is gonna be either like if you're on the play, it's a 4/5 draw card. If you're on the draw, it's a 4/5 gain 4, make 2 fish.
Mm-hmm.
And if you happen to be winning on all axes, then just having a 4/5 for 4 mana is probably enough to push you through to the victory anyways. So like, just this is the kind of card where this is what I'm asking Wizards to do more of. If you're losing by a lot on all axes, this card potentially catches you up. I love it. I just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, what do I want to give Beza? You want to give it an A?
Yes.
Yep, I do too. A for Beza. This one's also probably going to get an A. This is Warren Warleader. This is 2 white for a 4/4 Rabbit Knight at Mythic. It's got Offspring for 2 mana. And whenever you attack, you choose one. Either make a 1/1 white rabbit token tapped and attacking, or attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Wowee. And that's just like one of the previous cards we've seen. I think the first card we looked at. This is just whenever you attack. Doesn't have to be with the Warleader.
This has got to be an A+,
Yes,
doesn't it?
I think so. I think just the immediate pressure, big body, either gives you more creatures to attack with or pumps the ones you have. The Offspring is nuts with this. Yeah, I am in for A+ for Warren Warleader.
Yeah, it's just insanely good at 4 or 6 mana.
All right, easy card. I don't think we have to talk about this one too much more. Starfall Invocation. This is 3 white for a sorcery at rare. Gift a card as the gift. Destroy all creatures. Then if a gift was promised, return a creature card put into your graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control.
Yeah, I saw people calling this Sunfall. It's not there.
No. Not close, I don't think.
Like, gifting your opponent a card after a Wrath is like, you're gonna do it, but it's bad.
It is bad, yeah. We've had a lot of variants of that. Like if whoever controls a multicolor permanent or whoever has the most creatures draws a card after the Wrath, and those have always been just like, whatever. We don't really care about those kind of cards that much.
Right. And you don't get to like attack with your creature here, so it's it's not a Dune Blast or whatever.
Yeah, true.
You do re-trigger ETBs potentially.
Yeah, that is nice.
So there's going to be some really sweet, screenshots with this thing where you're just kind of going nuts. But I think it's very good, but I don't think it's an A-level card.
No, I think worth mentioning though, whereas a lot of the gift cards we talked about, like, yeah, you're maybe going to gift like 20% of the time. I think you're going to gift more often than not with this card. Like, I think getting the card, like a pretty good card back, a 3-drop, a 4-drop, and the mana, like the card plus the mana to cast it, is going to be worth giving your opponent a random card.
Yeah, a 3-drop I agree with. If you're not getting a 3-drop, it becomes a question of how good is your 2-drop, because I think the answer might be no at that point.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because often, like, when you're wrathing, it's because you're behind and you don't have like huge creatures that are stabilizing the board for you.
Yeah, kind of a tricky one to evaluate. I think it is good but not busted, so I'm going to give Starfall Invocation a B-.
I was going to go B.
Okay,
yeah, okay.
Cool. We've got the first of another mythic cycle here, a really cool mythic cycle. So these are the seasons. Season of the Burrow is the white one here. 3 white for a sorcery. And we've got a new mechanic, a mechanic that we didn't see yesterday, the paw print mechanic. So it says choose up to 5 paw prints worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. And there's 3 modes. The first mode costs 1 paw. Create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. The second mode costs 2 paws. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. The last one is 3 paws. Return target permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. So you can either make 5 rabbits or make 3 rabbits and exile non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. Make 2 rabbits, return something. Mix and match however you like.
Yeah, notably, you can't exile the rabbits that you make because you'll have to declare targets upon count.
Yeah.
So a little bit like it'd be nice if you could, but they just haven't worded it that way, which would be difficult to do anyways. But yeah, so like we talked about cards that need to make lots of tokens, and here's one that does it all by itself.
Yeah, I think pretty common mode. Like the most common modes are going to be make 5 tokens or make 2 tokens, bring back something from your grave with an indestructible counter.
Yeah, if you have like I think if you have even if you have a 1-drop in your graveyard, it's probably worth having a 1/1 indestructible over having 3 more rabbits.
Agree.
So that third ability is really strong.
Yeah, and the middle ability is kind of like not exactly a buyout, but you're not going to exile something your opponent controls unless it's something that really needs to be dealt with.
Right. You can also exile something of yours if you need to, but yeah, I agree that you're going to choose that mode far less frequently.
Yeah, you could just use cash in a food for a card. Like that's something that you might want to do.
Yep.
In any case, card is very good, and I would give Season of the Burrow an A-.
Yeah, I agree.
Sweet. Okay, on to blue. What's our first blue card here?
We have Mockingbird. X and a blue for a 1/1 bird with flying. You may have Mockingbird enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield with mana value less than or equal to the amount of mana spent to cast Mockingbird, except it's a bird in addition to its other types and has flying.
So yeah, it's a clone that you have to match the mana value of whatever you're cloning, but you get flying. But part of the value of a clone is trading up on mana sometimes. They have a good 6, you copy that with your 4 mana clone.
It does. It's nice that it spots you the blue mana on this too, though. Like it's not you don't lose because when I read X and a blue clone, I was like, oh well, you have to lose 1 mana, but you do get the blue mana included.
Yeah, and giving flying is a pretty nice bonus, like especially if you copy a lifelinker or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card's okay. I think we've seen time and time again that clones are kind of like fine, not amazing, and I don't like. There's a trade-off here. It's not just a better clone than we usually see or a worse one. So I think that averages to about the same as we would give usual clone variants. This one can target your opponent's stuff, worth noting. Some of the ones recently can't.
Yeah, I'd give this like a C.
Yep, C for Mockingbird. Exactly where I was going to go to.
Perfect.
This one's a weird one. This is Portent of Calamity. X and a blue for a sorcery at rare. Reveal the top X cards of your library. For each card type, you may exile a card of that type from among them. Put the rest into your graveyard. You may cast a spell from among the exiled cards without paying its mana cost if you exiled 4 or more cards this way. Then put the rest of the exiled cards in your hand. So it's, forget about the casting for free part for a second. You're kind of just like looking at the top bunch of cards, however many X's, and get to draw some number of each card type. How many of the card types you see.
Yeah, 1 for each card type that you find.
Right. And very, very rarely, unless you're just like late game doing this for 8 or something, are you going to find 4 different card types. You need creature, land, instant sorcery. Not even considering like the spread of those in your deck, but just seeing 4 different ones in X cards is pretty tough.
Well, even like for anyone who's cast Atraxa, even in like constructed formats, there's a lot of times you just get 3 cards off of your Atraxa.
Yeah, so I think you should mostly just see this as you're not getting a card for free. And if that's the case, it's just a really inefficient draw spell that isn't very good. Yeah, because you cast it for 4, that's 5 mana to maybe draw 2, 3 if you're lucky.
But it could be 1.
Yeah, could be really bad. Yeah, I think this is generally just going to be worse than the common draw spell if you're looking for this kind of grindy thing. So I'm going to give Portent not quite an F, but like a D minus, I think.
I gave it an F.
Okay, yeah, I'll stick. Sigurvitz is ringing in my head. I'll give it the D minus.
Okay.
Storm Chaser's Talent is up next. This is the blue class enchantment. First level, when it enters, you make a 1/1 blue and red otter token with prowess. Second level, level up for 4 mana, 3 in a blue. When it becomes level 2, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Level 3, leveling up for 6 mana, 5 in the blue. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1 otter token with prowess.
Yeah, I like this thing.
Me too. The level 2 and level 3 seem pretty expensive, and they are, but a 1/1 prowess token, that's like for 1 mana, that's actually a pretty decent rate. Like you don't hate that on its own.
Yeah, like in the late game, if you wait till turn 6 and pay 3 in a blue and return your fell to your hand and just like have a hard removal spell or something for 6 mana, like that's a nice. The nice thing is you're getting reasonable stats on cast.
Yes. I think this is almost more of a blue black card than a blue red card. Like seems like a good control. Yeah, it seems like a good controlling condition, less so like a red blue kind of tempo-y card.
I agree, because like black has a lot of cheap removal spells.
Yeah. What do you want to give it? Kind of a tricky one to grade.
I think this thing is like a C+.
Yeah. Assuming you've got good spells, cheap spells to get back. And assuming you do want to reach level 3 at some point, I think if your deck has fewer than like 10 spells, you're just not that interested in this. Or at least it's not that exciting. I think it would be lower than a C+. But yeah.
I don't think you need 10 spells.
Sorry, say again?
I don't think you need 10 spells. Like this is basically like in the bank for later, right? So you're not doing this on turn 4. You're doing this when you've run out of other stuff to do. So you just need one target. It can almost be anything by the time you hit your out of gas point, which is probably like turn 6 or turn 7. So by turn 6 or 7, you've seen 14 cards from your library. So you don't need 10 spells. Like if you have like 6, 7 spells, it's probably fine.
Okay, yeah. That is fair. So just say C+, blanket, and assume you have that number of spells basically, which I think is pretty simple to do. Not that hard. Yeah. Okay, cool. C+ for Storm Chaser's talent. Storm Chaser's talents. Next up, we've got Azure Beastbinder. 1 in a blue for a 1/3 Rat Rogue at rare. It's got Vigilance and says can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or greater. So that's pretty good. It only can be blocked by 1 power creatures or 0 power creatures. When it attacks, up to 1 target artifact, creature, or planeswalker an opponent controls loses all abilities until your next turn. If it's a creature, it also has base power and toughness 2/2 until your next turn.
Yeah, so almost impossible to kill in combat. And if you can grow this thing in any way,
ooh, yeah,
like especially like the bird mentor, just putting a counter on this on turn 3, like it's 2/4 vigilance that's basically unblockable is great.
Really nice. Yeah.
And you can totally hose some of your opponent's stuff too, because it's until the end of your next turn, so they don't even get to attack through your creature.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not exactly icy manipulator, because like a 2/2 is a real thing that can attack you still. But then again, this 1/3 can ostensibly block that, so it almost is.
And notably, it's not gonna come up that often. But if they do have a 1/3 as their only blocker, you can grow their 1/3 so you can get through it.
Yeah. No, this is a good card. I like this quite a bit. I would give Azure Beastbinder a B.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Next up is Dour Portmage. This is 1 in a blue for a 1/3 Frog Wizard at rare. It says whenever one or more other creatures you control leaves the battlefield without dying, draw a card. And it's got 1 in a blue, tap, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. Notably, not on your turn, not sorcery speed. That's just always have that up, being able to protect your other creatures.
Yes, but not itself, notably.
Yes, that is true.
I feel like if this was printed 10 years ago, it would have been able to hit itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely would be. They don't want those kind of play patterns, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a frog card, I would say, because outside of frogs, you're not that happy to just like pick things up and replay them. Like there's just not going to be that many good enter the battlefield effects.
Well, I mean, late game, if you have a 1-drop,
Yeah,
you just
3
pay
mana.
3 mana for a card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's probably going to be difficult for you to not have something that's okay to pick up. But as far as consistency goes, I think you're mostly going to be surrounding this with frog cards.
You can also like block bounce.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, block bounce is a very viable thing. Yeah, really cool card.
And there's a lot of ETBs in this set. Like I think this card's just pretty interesting.
Yeah, I might be underselling it in just a non-frog deck as well. I think that could be true. Huh.
Yeah, I think like this one is going to be better in frogs, but I almost want to give this one like I don't know why, but I just want to give this one a general grade instead of
Yeah,
the
no.
frog.
I was gonna give it a specific grade, but I agree. And I think almost the opposite of what we've been doing of like, oh, when it's in the deck, it's this, but understand it's gonna be lower otherwise. Kind of the understand generally you can play this as this, but in a frog deck, it's gonna be even better. So I think I would give this a general grade of a C plus.
Yeah, like a floor C plus.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Cool. Yeah, lots of things you can do with this card. This next one is Thunder Trap Trainer, 1 and a blue for an Otter Wizard. It's a 1/2 at rare. It's got Offspring for a full 4 mana. And when it enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them, put into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So 2 mana, 1/2, Impulse for a spell, 6 mana. Not a lot of power and toughness on the board. Impulse for 2 spells, though.
Yeah, this is. I like this card.
I do too, and 4 is a lot more than 3 when considering like looking for something. Each number you go up when you're looking for something often increases your chances of hitting by quite a bit more than you might expect. So,
Yeah.
what's our number? As we've been calling out numbers for, you need to have this number of things for this card to be playable. How many spells do we need?
Probably 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so too. And this is also going to be one that you almost always cast for 2 mana. I mean, when you've got the 6 mana, sure, it's going to be quite good, but you're not just holding this for being able to hit the 6 mana mode.
Yeah, like 10 is basically 1/4 of your library. So if you're looking at 4 cards, like you're pretty likely to hit one.
Yep.
Obviously, that's not how math works exactly because you're not, stacking your deck 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, and then there's lots of like ways to rebuy something like this, and then having the kicker of Offspring is as you said, it's not going to come up often, but when you do cast the Offspring of this, it's extremely powerful. Like it's a 4 for 1.
Yeah, just a nice little bonus.
Yeah.
So for that kind of, we'll give it a synergy grade or a build around grade. I think closer to a synergy grade. Whereas,
Great,
yeah, you're not taking this and building around it. You're slotting it into a deck that makes it work. And I think there it gets like a C plus.
I wrote synergy B minus for myself.
Yeah. I'll join you there too. I think it sounds a little more right to me.
Okay.
Kitsa, Otterball Elite. This is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature mythic. It's an otter. It's got vigilance and prowess. Also has tap to draw a card, discard a card. Also has 2 mana tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You can choose new targets. Activate only if Kitsa's power is 3 or greater.
Yeah, so notably, when you cast the spell, it will trigger prowess. You let the prowess resolve, so you only need 1 more power on this thing.
Right.
So that can either come from casting a second spell and triggering prowess twice, or it can come from putting, a counter on it or an equipment or whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, pretty strong. Like, one just has Rona vibes from March of the Machine, kind of, where it's just like a 1/3 looter, which is just pretty good, and then has some late game utility.
And Vigilance Prowess, like
Yeah.
it can potentially get in a little bit.
Yeah. No, I like this. I think it's about the same level of card as I would rate Rona, and Rona was a pretty good card, like in the B plus range. So I'm gonna give Kitsa a B plus as well.
Sure, I'm
Yeah.
with you there.
Sweet. Valley Floodcaller up next. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 flash. It's an Otter Wizard at rare. You may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash. So your sorceries are instants. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap them.
This one's not. It's the Otter, and so of course it's not that good, right? Like,
Yeah, it gives all of your things, most of your things, prowess.
and untap.
And untap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's a 3 mana 2/2.
3 mana
That, like
2/2.
the text isn't like how many sorceries and enchantments and artifacts are you even gonna have?
Yeah. I think this is. I think
I'm
you're gonna
like-
play this card sometimes, like in your actual blue-red spells deck, where you have all of these things, the non-creature spells and the otters and some other creatures. But it's like a level of a okay common there, not like a great rare.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like a like a synergy C basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That. Yeah. I like that grade.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we've got a good one here. What's up next?
Next we have Kidnap. 2 blue for an enchantment aura. You can gift a card. It is an enchant creature. When it enters, tap enchanted creature. If the gift wasn't promised, put 3 stun counters on it. And you control enchanted creature.
Nice little mind control variant here. Notably, though, does get kind of foiled by all the things we were talking about. The blinking, the bird, the savior. This is a enchantment or a removal spell.
Well, they have to do it on cast though,
Right,
Like it's
yeah.
not like a pacifism or whatever, where they can any point where they draw it, they can just flicker their thing.
That's a good point, yeah.
So I don't think the downside's nearly that bad.
Yeah, so this one, if we're talking about splits of gifting versus not, kind of hard to
I was
say.
gonna ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're when you cast a mind control, it's an auto 2-for-1. They lose a card, you go up a card. So you can make it a just, as far as card economy goes, a 1-for-1 removal spell. And again, we're basically asking the question: is what you're taking better than a random card? But
yeah, it's like a 2-for-2 instead of a 1-for-1, right?
Mhm.
Because you're getting sure, same thing functionally. The split on gifting to non-gifting, I'm gonna say like 60-40 in favor of not gifting.
I think so too. Yeah, I think basically you're just like, all right, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna get it at some point. Yeah, it's almost like a removal spell that you say, all right, I've killed your creature for 4 mana, and I get a nice little gift in a few turns of
And you
myself.
still like if the creature has any activated or triggered abilities
Yeah.
or like passive abilities,
That's
you
true.
still get all that.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's a good split. You said 40-60 for gifting versus not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about right. In any case, very good card. Mind controls are good. And I would give Kidnap a probably just a B plus, not quite an A minus. I think that weighting is a big enough knock against it.
I think I'm gonna go. I was gonna go lower. I was gonna go B minus. Like I think
minus?
it's good, but I don't think it's broken.
Yeah. Yeah, also there are a couple bounce spells out there run away together. So that does still have that problem. Of just this sitting there. It's not just like a spell that takes their creature.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess either way wouldn't actually matter, but there are bounce spells is my point. Yeah.
And there's a number of disenchants too, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
there's the 2 mana 3/1 at common and white.
Yeah, no,
There's-
you're totally right. I think I agree. I will come down a little bit to. You said B minus?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's just enough awkwardness with this card. Like, we're very predisposed to be like, mind control, great card, but they balance this one pretty well. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, someone says it's unplayable. It's definitely not unplayable. Like
No,
my,
no,
my
no, not unplayable.
it can get a heck of a lot worse before you don't want to play it.
Totally. Okay, let's
So,
go
yeah.
B minus for Kidnap then.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Wishing Well is up next. 3 and a blue for an artifact. At rare, tap it to put a coin counter on Wishing Well. When you do, you can cast target instant or sorcery card with mana value equal to the number of coin counters on Wishing Well from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Activate this only as a sorcery.
I want to hear your thoughts on this because again, we might last card. I thought we disagreed. I wrote the color coordination and then I had to go back and delete it because you changed your mind.
I think
This one we might disagree on.
Yeah, I think this one might be pretty good. Like, my initial thought was, okay, it's pretty slow, and I also thought at first you kind of had to have a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4, but that's not the case. So there's been like a couple decent 1-mana spells, and I think just like redrawing all the cards in your in casting them for free is really good. So it's a slow card, but I think it's a good slow card.
Okay, what would you like to grade it?
Yeah, let's say like a control deck C plus basically.
Okay. See, yeah, I think this thing sucks.
Yeah. Okay.
Like activate as a sorcery means all of if your 1-mana cards are tricks, like you still get to do a trick and maybe go into combat with it, but like this type of card does not want you to be playing a bunch of tricks.
No, of course.
So then you probably need like at the minimum you need a 2-mana removal spell, at which point this becomes 4-mana suspend 1 sorcery removal. And then you need like a 3-mana card probably because you don't want to be waiting another 2 turns before you get the next card.
I also glossed over equal to. You can't be like, all right, now that I get to a certain point, I just get to cast whatever out of my grave each turn. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Yeah, you're right. I'm out. you
Okay,
successfully trapped me.
I did. How far down are you going? Because I'm all the way at an F.
Yeah, no. I think I'm there too. Well, again, I think this is probably one I won't give I'll give the set reviewers F to, but I'll give it a D minus. I think there might be something there once in every 20 drafts or something.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next one. We've been pretty good at the Mark thinks I'm gonna rate something pretty low or pretty high, but actually I'm running the money with them. So that's I think your first or second one of the set review that you successfully got me.
Yeah. It took a while. Yeah.
Next is Eluge, the Shoreless Sea. This is 1 blue for a star legendary creature elemental fish at Mythic. When its power and toughness are equal to the number of islands you control, and whenever it enters or attacks, you put a flood counter on target land, so either yours or your opponent's. It's an island in addition to its other types, as long as it has that counter on it. And the first instant or sorcery spell you cast each turn costs blue or a generic mana less to cast for each land you control with a flood counter on it.
Oh, I did miss that this was in addition to its other type. So it doesn't actually
mana
shut off your other lands
No.
or mana screw. Thinking for a second you could mana screw them, but yeah. So you're gonna target your own things and turn them into like split islands. Okay, so slightly better than I thought it was. I thought this was gonna be another F, but maybe it's not quite that bad.
It's pretty close though.
It's close, yeah.
Yeah, like this is you're basically wanting to be mono blue. And even then, like, is it even that good? It's a 4-mana 4/4 that makes your spells cost a little bit. It gives me big Ashling vibes from the last set from MH3. And I think it's worse than that card.
Yeah, I will go D minus for this.
Me too.
I'm gonna give this one an F. I think it's better than the Wishing Well.
Yes,
but,
I agree too.
But yeah, it's a card you're not like 1 out of 1,000 drafts.
Yep.
It will come up to the thing.
I agree. D minus for Eluge. Next up is the Blue Season of Weaving. 4 blue for a sorcery. You can choose, just like all of them, you can choose 5 paws worth of modes. First mode is 1 paw, draw a card. Second mode is 2 paws, choose an artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of it. Third, 3 paw mode is return each non-land, non-token permanent to its owner's hand. Ooh.
Yeah, notably, so this is not quite like, I mean, it's definitely not upheaval because it doesn't bounce lands, but it's
Right.
not going to bounce everything because your opponent will sometimes have some tokens in play.
Mm-hmm. Creature tokens, food tokens. So I think we had some kind of obvious default modes for the white one. This one's a little bit less obvious to just say as set reviewers what you're gonna do, because it might be great to return some stuff, and it might not be great. It might be, you might have good things to copy, you might not. You might just want to draw 5 cards with this. So
Well, yeah, I think if you have anything to copy, like draw 3 and make a copy, is probably better than draw 5.
mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing that the default is going to be the second plus third modes, right? Like make a copy of something and then bounce everything else.
Maybe copy something, bounce everything else. Yeah, because that's kind of like just your classic Doom Blast, Sunfall style card.
Yeah, it just notably that it won't necessarily bounce everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like an auto reset button guaranteed every time. No, you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. That is probably going to be the default.
Yeah, and yeah, make 2 copies, draw 1 is like, if you don't want them to bounce their stuff, that's still pretty good.
Yeah, still pretty good.
And notably, it doesn't target.
That is a good point. Yeah, I didn't catch that. Yeah, these seasons are just like so flexible. It's hard to imagine, at least the ones we've seen so far, game states where you're like, oh, this doesn't really do anything that I want it to. I think this is probably just also in the A range. I think I'm just gonna give Season of Weaving an A minus.
I was gonna go B plus.
B plus. Okay. Yeah. It's 6 mana is a lot, so something to notice. Okay, that's gonna bring us to black now. So moving right along, Iridescent Vine Lasher is our first black card. Single black mana for a 1/2 lizard at rare. It's got Offspring for 2 mana, and it has landfall. When a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to target opponents.
Card's sweet. Like
Yeah.
these lizards. I really like the lizard deck.
Yeah, me too. They're all like, we've got good rares for it, good uncommons, solid commons.
Yeah, like frogs, lizards, and kind of bats and squirrels too. All seemed like just really like sweet decks.
This is another. I think we saw the white mouse that was very similar to this at uncommon. That I think it's gonna be an even split of you cast it on 1 versus you cast it on 3.
Yeah.
And card's pretty darn good. Enables your synergies. It's just a good card on its own.
Yeah, it's like a bee.
Yeah, like a B. Yeah, very solid. I like the card. Iridescent Vine Lasher gets a B. Next up, we got a black class here. Scavenger's Talent. Single black mana. First level says whenever 1 or more creatures you control dies, you make a food token. Only triggers once each turn, though. Level 2, you level it up for 1 and a black. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, target player mills 2 cards. Level 3, you level up for 2 and a black. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice 3 other non-land permanents. If you do, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So this one is another kind of tricky to evaluate class that isn't just like super obvious, this is good or this is bad.
I thought this thing was bad. So talk me up on it then.
No, yeah, just to be clear, I'm not saying it's I also believe it's more bad than good, but I think like some of the other classes, you go, okay, well, in a specific deck, this can be pretty good. So I guess I'll talk you up from there. Like if you're just a deck that has food, like a lot of food is kind of the thing you want, you're milling yourself, but sometimes you mill your opponent too. And this gives you, actually, I think what's going to happen sometimes is you just get to that 3rd level, you're in a board stall, you sacrifice some stuff, mill the opponent for 6 each time, get back something, you're sacking food in the process, your other stuff dies, you make more food. Like, it is self-feeding. So I think you can kind of just, like, sit back, survive, and this can be a win condition. Not convinced? Yeah.
It's like the gears are turning. Okay. I see the vision.
Yeah.
It only costs 1. That's huge on this because like any amount of mana beyond 1, I'm throwing this thing in the garbage. Okay.
I'm saying it's a card you can cook with. I'm not saying it's just throw this into most decks.
I love the pun.
What? Oh, cooking? Is that?
Yeah.
I didn't even mean to do that.
You know,
Our first,
yeah.
our first unintended pun of the day. We were doing them all day yesterday.
Yeah.
I think that I am going to give this a low grade with the asterisks of you. I can definitely see this being quite good in some decks. Like I would give it a generic D, but if you're built with a lot of food, a lot of ways to go up the ground, a little bit of self mill, I think the card is going to be pretty good.
So like a synergy C minus type of thing.
It might even be like a build around rather than a synergy. Like I think this might be the type
Okay.
of card you take and you build around early. So yes, but
Sure.
same grade though, like build around C plus or something.
C plus or C minus?
I'll give it the C plus. The build around C plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will go build around C minus.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Interesting card though. What do we have next?
Next we have Cruel Claw's Heist, an interesting one. Black for a sorcery. You may gift a card. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. Exile that card. If the gift was promised, you may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled and spend mana of any type to cast it.
Okay, so black for coercion Thoughtseize. That's tough unless you're just heavy black, because this is the kind of card you want the option to cast early.
Mm-hmm.
The taking something from your opponent's hand is also really tough, because remember, gifting is as you cast it, so you can't look at your opponent's hand first. You have to say you get a card. And that's, again, you're asking yourself a question with variables that you don't know, like a bunch of factors. You're like, I don't know if the best card in their hand is going to be better than the average card in their deck, which I think most times, yes, I think you do gift this most times, but again, that black is just kind of tough.
Yeah, I think you understood this properly. I think chat misunderstanding. So you don't get to see their hand whether or not you're choosing to gift it, but you do get to discard the card that you're gifting.
Sorry,
so
yes. I wasn't clear about that. That is the way that I understand the card works. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it, but yeah, chat
Yeah, no, I
seemed a bit
appreciate that.
confused. Just to clarify for everybody around here.
Yes, I was unclear there.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna be happy to gift every single time with this.
Yeah,
And
I think that's what you're doing
like,
too. And you said you like it? You like this card?
I do like this card, yes.
Yeah, maybe my you want to be able to cast this on turn 2, which obviously you want to have the option to, but maybe that is not even that important. Like just double spelling this with like on something on 4 in this, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I think this card's like just good because you're gifting them a card which could be anything. Like if it's the best card in their hand suddenly, like it doesn't matter, right? Like whatever you're gifting them is a random card, then you're taking the best card and drawing the best card.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, a little bit hard to parse, but you're right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So basically, you get to be like, you get to draw a card, and it's like a loot in the favor of you as the caster, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. I'm definitely more sold on it. I'll let you grade this one first, though.
The only awkward thing on this is if they have nothing but land both in their hand and on top of their deck, then you've dug them one card deeper, and you're still at the point where you're passing back to them with. I mean, they'll get a new card for their draw step, but they've got nothing.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine.
So are you like B ranging this? Is this like a high C?
The black means I'm probably gonna like. It's somewhere between C plus and B minus for me.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna maybe give it a hot take B minus.
Yeah, I'll give you the C plus because I think black still will matter quite a bit, but no, definitely better than I initially thought. Yeah, cool card. Austeromancer Adept, I think that's how you pronounce that, is 1 and a black for a 2/2 Death Touch Squirrel Warlock at rare. It's got a ability, tap it, and until end of turn, you can cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging in addition to paying their other costs. If you cast a spell this way, the creature enters with a finality counter on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's an Osteomancer, but I mean, we don't need to
I think you're right about that, yeah.
we don't need to argue about semantics after whatever 7 hours of total set reviews at this point.
Yeah, sort of Luris-esque, but you can't just keep casting the card. You have a limit of how many things you can forage.
Well, and the finality counter.
Yes, of course. You can't just loop, 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 loop. But
Right, but 2 touch for 2. Like,
yeah,
it's already
that's just good.
yeah,
Yeah,
this card's
it's really nice. I think just like a super solid B.
Yep.
Yep. Nice. Okay, sweet. Valley Rot Caller, another really good one here. 1 in a black for a 1/3 squirrel warlock at rare. It's got menace, and when it attacks, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life. Where X is the number of other squirrels, bats, lizards, and rats you control.
This thing is nice.
Yeah. Even just draining for 1 would be pretty good. Because you're basically gaining 1, making them lose 2. Sorry, I think I interrupted you there. What was that?
No, yeah, because I said 1-3 minutes for 2. It gets. I mean, we just saw Charge Bug that like surprisingly annoying and hard to deal with and tricky to block, and this thing can just kill people in one shot sometimes too.
Yeah, and like if you just think about the creature types, all the decks really appreciate this because the Bats deck obviously appreciates the life gain. The Lizard deck appreciates the life lost. The Squirrel decks are going to have a lot of tokens. Same with the Rats. Yeah, seems great.
Yeah, we mentioned this, but it is other creatures.
Yes,
but that's
it is.
Like it's almost impossible to not have something else in play that satisfies this by like turn 3, right? Like,
yeah, the floor it's not going to reach its floor very often, and the ceiling is just absurd.
Yeah.
I like Valley Rot Caller at A-.
Yeah, I think right about that.
I think gets there. All right, what do we have next?
Next is Darkstar Augur, 2 in a black for a 2/3 bat. It has offspring for only a single black. It has flying, of course, being a bat. And at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its mana value.
Okay.
Ooh. I love this design.
Press your luck. So it's a Dark Confidant on a good body. And I guess the way I would think about this is you're only really going to offspring it if you're already like, way ahead on life total. Or you're into the bat deck where you just have some additional life gain.
You're a coward, Alex.
Are you on turn 4? Are you casting this offspringed?
I think so.
You think so? Yeah.
Like your opponent is gonna want to point a removal spell at this,
and so you're just left with the second thing that just says, okay, you got to kill this thing too.
Yeah.
When you bring up the fact that the opponents sometimes have removal, it does make this card a lot more enticing. Or kicking it a lot more enticing.
Yeah, like your opponent is gonna maybe decide, okay, I can't kill them, but then you're hitting for 3 in the air. I mean, you can block with either of them, right? Like, what are they gonna do? They're not gonna attack into you. They're not gonna block your creatures, and then you're playing the Bats deck, so you probably have some amount of life gain, either through bat cards or food. I think I'm gonna be brave as long as I'm not at a super low life total. But like on turn 4, I think you most of the time are gonna want to offspring this.
Yeah, I think in the Bats deck for sure, and I guess like we did the last card. Just think about it in the other decks, like in black green, you're gonna have some food lying around. In black blue, well, who knows? In black red, you're gonna be aggressive, so like you're ideally just gonna be drawing a bunch of really cheap cards, not losing that much life, and not caring as much about the life loss. So yeah, no, you're right. I will not be a coward about this, and I think I am also gonna kick it on turn 4 most of the time.
It's also like 3-4 worth of flying stats across 2 bodies.
Yeah, really, really good. Okay, I'm full on not coward with this card anymore. I think this card is just great.
Join the dark side.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Greatness at any cost, indeed. So what are we giving this? Are we giving this the A? I almost want to give it an A, just straight up A.
Whoa.
In the bat, sorry, in the Bats deck. My bad. Let me reserve. Let me dial that back a little bit.
Okay, I was gonna give this a B+.
Okay, that's what I was thinking for the generic grade, like generic B+, bat A.
I don't think it gets that much better in bats. Like is I guess my point.
Okay. Really? I think it's like significantly better. Like this is one of the few things that triggers your life loss things, and also like if you're just drawing 2 cards and gaining, let's say even like 60% of their life back each turn in your bat deck, like that's really, I think it's a huge difference.
Well, also your curve's probably going to be higher. Like you have the common 5 mana bat that drains
Mm-hmm.
2. You have the uncommon 5 mana bat that triggers end of turn. So like I think the risk is there, and you're also more likely to take early damage because your creatures are
Small,
less
can't block.
good. So yeah, like I think it's slightly better in bats, but I don't think it's that much better. So
Okay.
yeah, whatever you want to give it. Are you giving it like a?
I'm just gonna give it a blanket grade. I'm just gonna give it the blanket B plus.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, very nice card though.
yeah.
Wick the World Mind. This is 3 and a black for a 2/4 legendary creature, rats at rare. When it or another rat you control enters, create a 1/1 black snail creature token if you don't control a snail. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on a snail you control. It also has the ability blue, black, red, sacrifice a snail. Wick deals damage equal to the sacrifice creature's power to each opponent, then draw cards equal to the sacrifice's creature's power. Okay, so for straight up, you're getting 4 mana for a 2/4 and a 1/1. That's pretty good.
Not always.
Not always. Wait. Oh, if you have a changeling. That's right. If you have a changeling, you won't get your snail. It's got some Ophiomancer vibes there with snakes.
Well, it still pumps your changeling.
Mm, that's true. That is true. And look, this is more fodder for your changeling argument. You can send your 2/1s at the opponent to draw some cards.
Yeah,
And the changeling gives you the mana to activate that Grixis mana ability.
yeah, we're cooking. We're doing it.
Yeah, chat says amass snails. Yeah, it's basically what this is. You get to amass snail 1.
Yeah, basically.
So I would mostly evaluate this with no other rats in your deck, even though you will have rats like in your black
Right.
deck from time to time. And I guess this is one of the few, and we've seen maybe one or two other rares that are kind of like this. That we were talking about how there's not that many reasons to want to include a Crystal Grotto in your deck, or whatever the grotto in this set is called, the Surveil filtering land. This could be a reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I like this card. Something like a B minus.
Yep. I'm gonna give it B minus to Wick. I like it.
Okay.
Cool. All right. What do we have next?
Next is Coiling Rebirth. 3 black for a sorcery. You can gift a card. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then, if the gift was promised and that creature isn't legendary, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1.
Okay, so 5 mana reanimation, not exciting, especially from just your graveyard.
Yes.
And your token has to have a pretty, like the thing you're reanimating basically has to have a pretty good enter the battlefield and or static effect.
It basically has to have at least a card's worth of ETB.
Right. So it's gonna happen sometimes, but I don't think this is a great card. I think it's just an okay one.
Yeah. I was going to give this a D+.
Yep, I like D plus for Coiling Rebirth. Agree.
Okay.
Maha, it's Feathers Knight. Good name. 3 black for a 6/5 legendary creature, elemental bird at Mythic. It's got flying and trample, a ward cost of discard a card, and the ability creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. Ooh.
Good grief.
What a monster.
And is somehow a relevant creature type. Like you'd assume this
Oh,
is some
yeah,
kind of
true. Wow, it's a bird.
bird. Yeah.
Huh. So it's this massive body that has protection, and yeah, effectively you can think of this as all your creatures have death touch, but also any ping effects will kill your opponent's creatures.
You can also drop this like post combat.
Oh yeah, just like the post combat, make all your opponent's things small, crash some small things in, attack all your little
Yeah.
1/1s in.
Yeah, this thing I think is an A+.
Yeah, I would also give Maha an A+. Seems very good. Okay. Season of Lost, the black season here. 3 black for a sorcery, 5 paws. The first 1-paw mode is each player sacks a creature. The 2-paw mode is draw a card for each creature you control that died this turn. The 3-paw mode is each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. A bit finicky,
so
but interesting.
a little worse than the blue and white
Mm-hmm.
ones, but not that much worse.
I think the blue and white ones, you're just never sad to draw them. And I don't think you're going to be that sad to draw this card, because I think most of the modes, or most of the time, you're going to have a mode that you care about. But there are some game states where it's not going to be the thing you cast with your 5 mana for turn.
Yeah. Yeah, this thing, that third line ability's not going to matter much unless it's killing them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're mostly looking at the first two. So it's either like each player sacks 5 things, which is basically just like a Wrath, which is probably good. And it's not exactly Wrath, because I could foresee boards where there's more than 5 creatures on one side.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's sack 3 things and then draw a card for your stuff that died, probably.
Yeah, and I think just like Wrath the board, you draw 2 or 3 cards. It's going to be a fairly common mode.
Yeah, which that looks pretty good. But then you need the board to be pretty small for that to be the case.
Yeah, there's a lot of tokens too. So sacrifice a creature is probably a little bit worse in this set than it would be normally.
Yeah.
Also, the you know that 3-paw mode, each opponent loses X life. Like, I can see you just getting into game states fairly often where you just have 2 more creatures than them, or even 1 more creature. You go, we both sack, you lose 5, I attack you for 5, and just kill them pretty quickly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's probably even a little bit less, a little more flexible than I initially thought too. So I don't think I'm going to knock it too much. I think I'm going to give Season Lost a B+.
B+, I was going to go B-.
B-?
I'm lower than you on this, but
yeah, another one of our kind of medium differences here. Strong card though, and here's another pretty strong card: Rottenmouth Viper, 5 and a black for a 6/6 elemental snake at Mythic. As an additional cost to cast it, you can sack any number of non-land permanents. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each permanent sacked this way. When it enters or attacks, put a blight counter on it. Then for each blight counter on it, each opponent loses 4 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. So that kind of text we've seen here and there throughout the set, but 4 life instead of 3.
Yeah. Notably, like, the discount isn't really that relevant.
No.
You're not going to want to sack non-lands to cast this cheaper.
Well,
I mean, you can turn food into treasure,
right.
kind of, like, so.
Yeah, turn your food into treasure. That's a funny way of putting it. I think
it does mean you're more likely to be able to attack with it the next turn, probably.
Yeah, I do think you're going to... I would imagine you cast this for 5 way more often than 6. Like, I think you're probably going to sack your 2-drop to cast this. Like, because like you just said, getting it down early is pretty beneficial.
Yeah, I could also foresee spots where you wait to leave up, like, Shore Up or the White Indestructible spell with this.
Yep. Oh, yeah, true.
Because if you get 1 attack in with this, it's insane.
Right, they have to do that 3 times, like 1 on enter and twice when you attack once.
Yeah.
Card's really good.
So I am... Are you putting is an A-? Does it get into the A range?
Yeah, I think it's in the A range. I would give it an A-.
Okay, I'll join you there then.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Okay. Thanks. Next one, we're going to red now. Hired Claw, single red mana for a lizard at rare. It's a 1/2, and it says whenever you attack with 1 or more lizards, Hired Claw deals 1 damage to target opponent. You can pay 1 red to put a counter, +1/+1 counter on the Hired Claw. Activate only if the opponent lost life this turn and only once.
So it does attack as a 2/3.
Yes, yeah, it threatens to attack as a 2/3.
Yeah, because you attack, it'll trigger, and then you can pump it before blocks or after blocks, or whenever you want, as long as it's once per turn.
Yeah,
this card's great.
Yeah, this card's really good. It's just another, like, they are not skimping on ways to trigger your lizards. Like, they are making it quite easy for your lizards to do their thing.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, like, if this... So you might not attack and pump it on turn 2. Although you might, if you just don't have a 2-drop. But eventually, this is going to be a little bit outclassed, and you can just kind of have it sit around and grow it as you attack with your other things. Then it can get back in the arena and start brawling again.
Yeah, notably, like if your opponent is playing the Bats deck and loses life on their turn, you can still activate this.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Nice. Yeah, pretty strong 1-drop. So you want to give Hired Claw like a B?
I think it might be even better than that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a B plus.
Okay, I'll stick with my B. But yeah,
Okay.
nice one. Artist Talent is the red rare class here. 1 in a red for a... one in a red where the first level says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Level 2, leveling it up for 3 mana, 2 in a red. Non-creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Level 3, upgrade again for another 3 mana, 2 in a red. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much plus 2.
This easy F,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, just so much mana, like, to do not really that much. I also agree, easy F.
Okay.
Emberheart Changeling. This is 1 in a red for a 2/2 mouse at rare. It's got haste and prowess, and the Valiant ability is you exile the top card of your library until end of turn. You can play that card.
Challenger, not Changeling.
Oh, sorry, Challenger. My bad. Did I say Changeling? That would make it a very. That would be very confusing.
Very different card.
Very confusing if you didn't correct me there.
Yeah, Emberheart Challenger is just a mouse warrior.
Oh yeah.
But it is a very good one.
Yeah, haste prowess is a nice little set of abilities, especially with Valiant wanting you to put combat tricks in your deck. That Valiant ability is pretty good. Drawing a card. Yeah, not much to hate here. Just a nice little efficient creature. I would give Emberheart Challenger a B.
I'm kind of higher on this too.
B+?
I think this is another B plus.
Yeah, no,
like,
I'll join you. Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
We got Manifold Mouse next. 1 in a red for a 1/2 mouse at rare. It's got Offspring for 2 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target mouse you control gains either Double Strike or Trample until end of turn.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, really, really nice. So it's effectively a half, like, it's a 2/2 on attacks.
Yeah.
But Double Strike and Trample are the exact abilities you want in your Valiant deck where you have combat tricks. Because this thing is just going to kill your opponent out of nowhere so often.
It also just like triggers Valiant by itself.
Oh yeah, I didn't even consider that. Wow. Yeah. And double Valiants for free every turn?
Yeah, I think this thing's just an A.
Yeah, I think so too. Card's very, very good.
Looks so good.
Yeah, A for Manifold Mouse.
Expend 4 for raccoons.
Yeah, expends, of course. Byway Barterer. Barterer. It's a funny word. 2 to red, so 3 mana for a 3/3 menace. It's a raccoon at rare. Whenever you expend 4, you can discard your hand, and if you do, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, decent.
Yeah, it's fine. 3 mana, 3/3 menace is fine. Sometimes you're gonna cast the last or second last card in your hand, and that's the thing that triggers this. It is kind of like a puzzle, because you're like, okay, I want the last card, or one of the last cards that's relevant in my hand, to be a 4 mana card. Which is naturally what's going to happen a lot of the time, but there's a little bit of play to that.
It doesn't need to be a 4 mana card. Like you can cast,
Sure.
a 2-drop and 3-drop. And
Yeah.
You just need to empty your hand. You just need to make sure that you don't cast the 4-drop. Like if you're casting a 4-drop and a 1-drop, you got to cast the 1-drop first.
Yes. Sorry, yeah. The puzzle is how are you going to sequence the last few cards? That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already like a 3/3 menace with types for 3 is already solid. It's like a B minus.
Yeah, B minus. That's what I would have given too.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, what's up next?
Next is Hearthborn Battler. 2 and a red for a 2/3 lizard at rare. It has haste. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, it deals 2 damage to target opponent.
Wow,
And that's either player.
that is a really nice ability.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that helps your lizard's lizard, and yeah, as we've seen with some cards in the past, Ledger Shredder, which actually is in the set too on the special guest list, like that, making your opponent feel awkward about casting their second spell is a pretty good ability. 2/3 haste is like fine, you're gonna get in maybe once or twice with it.
Yeah.
And
This is like another B minus type of thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna give it a B, I think, but
Okay.
that's good. Yeah, B for Hearthborn Battler for me. Next is a Valley Flamecaller. This is 2 in a red for a 3/3 lizard at rare. If a lizard, mouse, otter, or raccoon would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1.
Yeah, which includes itself.
So it's a 4/3 basically.
4/3, but notably, if they like double block this with a 2/3 and a 1/1, you have to put the 1/1 first.
Yes, weird rules thing there, but when you have that's the way it works.
Yeah, because it'll deal 1+1 damage to the 1/1, and then 2+1 to the 2/3. Whereas if you put the 2/3 first, it's only dealing 3+1 damage to that creature. I don't know if I explained that well, but
yeah, this seems pretty good. Like it's not no keywords or anything, but the ability's good.
Right, and it affects everything. I think it's like another like. I think I'm gonna go up to a B for this.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say too. B for Valley Flamecaller. Sunspine Lynx is 2 red for a 5/4 elemental cat at rare. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. And when the Lynx enters, it deals damage equal to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls.
Yeah, so a big FU to the bat stack.
yeah, exactly. Just you cannot do your thing.
But aside from that, most of that text is constructed, intended.
Yep, it might deal 2 or 1 once in a while to your opponent. It's just kind of a big.
Oh, 5/4 for 4.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of just a big dumb thing.
Yeah,
I think it's okay. It's like a C, C+. Yeah, C+ for Sunspine Lynx. I like that.
Yeah, it's big. Like it's very big.
Storm Splitter.
You're not cutting this from any red deck, are you?
Sorry, say again.
You're not cutting this from any red decks, are you?
I think in your best red decks, you probably won't play this.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's C+.
Yeah.
C+ is about like between C and C+. Like he often mentioned, C+ is that dividing line of I will rarely cut this card from my deck.
Yeah.
Storm Splitter is a really fun one. This is 3 in a red for a 1/4 haste otter at Mythic. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a token that's a copy of Storm Splitter. Exile that token at the beginning of your next end step.
Yeah, so it will exponentially replicate itself. Like you get 1, and then you'll get 4, like a second, and then a 4th, and then an 8th of them. But you're not often going to be really chaining a ton of spells.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like if you cast, and the thing is, if you get to a reasonable number of spells, I think it is, doable and limited. That's probably like 3 when you're really going off. And what's the math there? So you cast the first one, you get 2. Cast your second one, you get 4. So you get 8. So you got 8 1 power creatures attacking. That's okay.
Yeah, it's pretty understated, and the haste only is there because of the fact that you're creating copies. Yeah, it's not really going to get in on turn 4.
Yeah, I think this card is more fun than good. I think Storm Splitter is going to end up not being a great card. I think I'm going to give it a D.
I wrote D+ for myself.
Yep. Yeah, sounds good.
Very similar.
Festival of Ember is probably another quick one here. 4 in a red for an enchantment at rare. During your turn, you can cast instant and sorcery spells from your graveyard by paying 1 life in addition to their other costs. If a card or token will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. You can pay 1 red to sacrifice Festival of Embers.
F.
F, yeah, just not for us, probably.
No.
Dragonhawk. Fate's Tempest. This one is for us. This is 3 red for a 5/5 flyer. Legendary creature, Bird Dragon at Mythics. Another one that gets the creature type here. When it enters or attacks, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 4 or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still in exile. And of course, Dragonhawk does trigger that ability itself.
Yeah, beginning of next end step is not the same as next turn, though. So it is just
sorry.
Turn.
Beginning of next. Yeah, my bad.
You said it properly. It's just the way you emphasized it. I wanted to be clear that it's only this turn.
Yeah, and you were great to catch me because I had it in my head that it was the other way. So thanks for calling that out.
Still, like it's basically the turn it comes down, it's going to deal damage, and And then after that, it's going to give you the choice of damage or cards, and it's at least 2 damage, and it could be more if you have more 4 power creatures. Just like an A.
Yeah, I think just solid A for Dragonhawk.
Yeah.
Season of the Bull. This is the red mythic season. 3 red for a sorcery. You get 5 paws. First mode, single paw, make a tapped treasure token. Second mode, 2 paws, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You can play them. 3 paws until the end of your next turn. Whenever you cast a spell, Season of the Bull deals 2 damage to up to 1 target creature.
Yeah, weird one. Definitely the worst of them.
Right.
Still playable. But I think the normal mode for this will be a treasure and 4 cards.
Yeah, I think so too. There's going to be situations where you've got the time to set up and you look at your hand and you go, all right, well, they've got a lot of 2-power things. I do mode 2 and mode 3. I exile top 2 and hope to kill maybe 2 or 3 of their things next turn.
Yeah, two toughness things.
Yeah, 2 toughness things. Or, 1 4 toughness thing. Yeah, it seems okay. Yeah. I think this is probably like a C level card. A little bit expensive, a little bit clunky, a little bit you're not exactly sure what you're getting yourself into, but has a ceiling.
I'll go C plus.
C plus? All right.
Good, but yeah, not a B level card. Yeah.
On to green now, so almost home stretch. For the Common Good is our first green card. XX green for a sorcery at rare. Create X tokens that are copies of target token you control. Then tokens you control gain indestructible until the end of your next turn. You gain a life for each token you control.
Yeah, token your token.
Token. Yeah. Nah. I think this is pretty bad. Like, all the tokens are pretty small in this set, and you have to reach out and target one of your own things, putting it at risk. You do it for X equals 2 for 5 mana. That's I think
That's
kind of
2 squirrels,
right.
And then indestructible until your next turn, and like 4 life.
It is nice to target an offspring token, because those are usually going to have like a good enter the battlefield effect or good static ability.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
So this is kind of maybe like an offspring specific card. Like you've got 4 or 5 good offspring cards, and then and other tokens as a buyout, so you aren't just stuck with this doing nothing in your hand.
Yeah, so like a synergy D plus type of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about there too. Not
Okay.
unplayable, but definitely needs a lot of setup.
Yeah.
Mist Breath Elder up next. This is 1 green mana for a frog at rare. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on Mist Breath Hydra. Otherwise, you may return Mist Breath Elder to its owner's hand. Weird.
I know we're getting late, but you briefly called it.
I said Hydra. Yeah, because I was thinking Mistborn Hydra. Wait, yeah, I don't know. I caught myself and I even was like, did I say that? I couldn't have said that. If I did say it, Mark will catch me.
I shouldn't give you. I mean, you read so many of these.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
So not optional.
Got to pick something up.
You have to pick something up. Yeah.
And that's not even necessarily. Like, even if you've got the good things to pick up, the Pawn Prophet and the 1-drop, you might not even want to, really. The 1-drop, I think, probably yes. I think that one's probably like, you're pretty happy picking it up. But the 2-drop, you're not always happy to just pick that up.
And anything more than 2, like, that's really hurting you. Even if it has an ETB, it's really hurting you.
Yeah. Chat's a little confusion, I think. That basically how it works, if you have another creature, you have to pick one of your other creatures up. If this is the only thing, you don't have to.
Yeah, it's optional if it's the last thing.
Yeah, which basically is so you can play it on turn 1.
I think it's pretty good on 1.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty good on like turn 8 or whatever, right? When you're just going to be like resetting offspring.
Yeah,
and
got a ton of mana.
ETBs. Awkward in like the middle, but that probably still means it's default good.
Playable, yeah.
Because like even if you play a 2-drop that has no ETBs and have to return, like, let's say you play like the 3/1 mouse or whatever, right? Have to return it. You're still like basically paying 2 mana for +1/+1 counter on this thing, and attacking as a 3/3.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
not bad.
as soon as they trade with this, they can't just ignore this thing.
And it's just 1 mana too. Is the thing like that's
Yeah.
forgives a lot of the awkwardness of the card.
It also punches well with the
Polywop, yeah.
Polywalk, or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough card to evaluate and stamp a grade on because you are gonna have moments of like I really don't want this card in my hand / I don't want to cast it, but you're also gonna have moments of like wow this is just great and my opponent has to kill my 1-drop.
I think I'm leaning towards giving it a C.
Yeah. Is that like an actual like you're pretty sure it's gonna land there, or is that just like I'm not the coward C of like I'm not exactly sure. I think it's kind of good sometimes. I think it's kind of bad sometimes.
No, I think it would. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being like a C.
Yeah. I'll join you at C, but I will admit that is my grade is more based on that. The second thing I said than the first thing. We'll see where it lands though. Paw Patch Recruit up next. Single green mana for a 2/1 rabbit at rare. It's got Offspring for 2 mana. Has Trample, and whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than that creature.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting card.
2/1 Trample for 1. Okay. Pretty good.
And all your creatures have like ward, something else gets a counter, basically.
I think that's pretty good. I think this one kind of the same as the other 1-drops with Offspring we've seen for 2 mana. You're going to do the even split of 50% 3 mana, 50% 1. Card's really good, but if your opponent just like isn't interacting that much, I mean it's still pretty good.
I think this one you prefer not to play on turn 1.
Yeah, you want the Offspring.
The Offspring makes like the ward of putting 2 counters spread around.
I guess, but I think you're gonna play this in your like if you have this in your opening hand, another 1-drop, like you do play it. No?
If you have a 3-drop, yes. I think if I don't have a 3-drop, this one I'm more likely to hold.
Sure.
Because you do also in Rabbits want to be like making tokens and going wide are both extremely relevant.
A lot of strong 1-drops at rare, actually. Something that is a through line through all these rares. Okay, where do we land? My gut says like a B+. I don't think it quite makes it to the A- range.
No, I wasn't anywhere close to that. I was gonna give it like a B.
A B?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll stick with my B+, but...
Okay.
Next up, we've got Valley Might Caller, another 1-drop, speaking of which. Single green mana for a 1/1 frog at rare. It has Trample and sort of like a Champion of the Perished. Whenever another frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Valley Might Caller.
Right, but this is like multiple creature types and has trample. Like this thing. Yeah. Jeez.
Really
and
good.
With themselves, like you're just gonna be able to trigger this multiple times, even in the late game in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Wow. Like Champion of the Parish and Perished were both pretty solid cards, and I think this one's better. And there's also
the opening hand win rate on this thing is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
I think I'm just giving it an A- for the fact that you won't always have it in your opening hand, but like insanely good in your like. This is probably the best opening hand card in the set.
Also, just so many tokens in the set too, where like the Offspring cards, things that make tokens. Yeah, I'm in. A-.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, what is up next? We've got the green rare class.
Innkeeper's Talent. 1 and a green for an enchantment class, of course. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. You can pay green to get it to level 2 to make permanents you control with counters on them have ward 1. And then 3 and a green will move it to level 3, which does if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counter instead.
So both green classes are just busted then. Like,
yes.
Both are just messed up cards. Yeah, cards absurd.
A.
Yeah, A for Innkeeper Silence. That first, like the first level, just being like, oh, it just you put a counter on everything. Okay, sure. You don't even have to be attacking. You can just leave it back on blocks. Great. Next up, we've got Keen Eye Curator. Green for a 3/3 raccoon at rare. As long as there are 4 or more card types among cards exiled with the raccoon, or with the Keen Eye Curator, it gets +4/+4 and has trample, so it turns into a 7/7 trample. And the way you do that is it's got this ability: 1 generic mana, exile target card from a graveyard.
Yeah, I think this is also another reason to include Changeling, funnily enough, because it'll give you like an artifact that you can pitch from your graveyard at any point.
Yeah, so how easy is this actually going to be? So creatures pretty easy, instant and sorcery, not trivial, but easy-ish. Lands, there aren't many lands going to the graveyard unless you're milling them or your opponents are. So yeah,
There is
artifact.
like the white and the black like typo lands suck to activate, but yeah, there's no like evolving wilds that's gonna go to the graveyard frequently. So I think it's gonna be like pretty tough.
Yeah, another card that plays very well with Cash Grab from
Yes,
yesterday.
although it's not a squirrel, so it doesn't find this. But
Yeah.
yes, it does. It does play well with Cash Grab.
Green for 3/3 is solid. I'd give that card like a C.
Also turns off your opponent's threshold.
Oh, good.
You really needed to hose
yeah,
that
I was worried the threshold decks were gonna run amok in the format.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not too much to hate about this. I think that most games that go a little, I don't want to say go long, but go to like turn 7, 8, you're gonna see something from you or your opponent that you can make this into a 7/7.
Mm.
So if I'm giving that a C, like a baseline 3/3 GG is a C, I think you got to bump this up to like, it gets great in the late game or massive in the late game, bump it up to like a B-.
I wrote B- minus for myself.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Tender Wild Guide up next. 1 and a green for a 2/2. It's a possum druid at rare. Oh, brace yourselves. No, not a relevant creature type. Offspring for 2 mana. Tap it to add a mana of any color. Tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature.
I really like this thing.
Yeah, this thing's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just double, like every both points are good in the curve.
Yes.
Relevant. It's everything that you're looking for a mana dork. It adds any color. It makes itself relevant after it's done its thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go to A minus. Is that too high?
Nope. I was gonna do the same thing. A- for Tender
Okay.
Wild Guide. Thorn Vault Forager, another mana dork. 1 and a green for a 2/2 squirrel at rare. Tap to add green. Tap and forage to add 2 mana in any color combination. 3 and a green, tap it, search your library for a squirrel card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle.
Instant speed, like this is like the old Rebels cards.
Ooh.
That's dating myself a bit, I guess.
Yeah, like 10% of the people listening know what that means. Maybe more than that. Maybe I'm not giving the audience enough credit, but yeah, it has that vibe.
Yeah, I like that last ability a lot. The fact that you can do it at instant speed is really good.
Mm-hmm. And the forage to double ramp yourself, that's really strong too.
I don't think that'll come up as much because if you're playing squirrels and especially if you're searching out squirrels, you're gonna want to save your forage for the payoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm just thinking, like, you play something that makes a food. You get to double spell on turn 3 with like 5 mana worth of stuff.
That's true. Yeah, like the black green uncommon.
Yeah.
You can immediately play a 3-drop as well.
Mm-hmm. That seems really good.
Yeah, it does seem really good. Yeah.
Are you gonna get? I think this is worse than the last one. I think it's just like a little more has to go right, not just generically awesome always. So I'll give Thorn Vault Forager like a B in squirrels.
I'm going B plus.
Okay. Yeah, it's got enough going on.
Mm-hmm.
Scrap Shooter up next. 1 green for a 4/4. It's a raccoon at rare. It says gift a card. It's got reach. When it enters, if the gift was promised, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls.
Yeah, nice upside. So you get to 1 for 1. You get to blow up their kidnap or whatever. You're probably not going to want to do this on a food, but as long as you're getting a real card out of it. I mean, we saw a lot of the class enchantments. Just having incidental hate for those can be really good. There's equipment out there, so
Yeah, really solid card. I think I'd give this a B minus.
B minus. Okay,
I
I
think
was
so.
gonna go higher than that. It's huge.
The double pips though. The double pip. I always gotta knock it a little bit for that cheap double pips.
Okay, I was gonna go B plus. I'll stick on. You know, I don't know. I'll stay with my B
All right,
plus. I like
yeah,
this.
that's fine. Totally fine. Fecund Green Shell up next. 3 green for a 4/6 reach elemental turtle at rare. As long as you control 10 or more lands, creatures you control get +2/+2. Also has the ability when it or another creature you control with toughness greater than its power enters, so something with a big butt. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you can put it on the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, put it into your hand. Wow.
Jesus, is this another A plus?
Yeah, this is crazy. I'm surprised. I'm almost surprised this card isn't mythic. Like you said, they've done a pretty good job of making the busted cards not rare. But
Oh no, it's not mythic. Oh, what a shame.
yeah,
Didn't even clock that. You're right. This card's in bananas.
yeah, gigantic draws a card, threatens to draw more cards. I think that 10 mana or 10 lands thing is going to be very rare, but will come up sometimes.
Well, so this plays really nicely with the common that is a food that searches for a land on ETB and on death, right?
Yeah, just get double lands in play.
You play that turn 3, you play this turn 4, and then it also gets you your 6th land as well.
Yeah, just like anytime you get to cast this, and we've seen a lot of mana dorks in this set. Anytime you get to cast this before turn 5, just gigantic.
Yeah, and then it does like spot you creatures or lands from its second ability too.
Yeah. All right, wanna A plus this one?
I've already A plus.
All right, let's do it.
I hate that things are rare.
Yep.
I wish this thing was a mythic. Yeah.
Me too. This is the mythic Lumra, Bellow of the Woods. 4 GG for a star legendary creature elemental. Bear. It's got vigilance and reach. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. And when it enters, you mill 4 cards, then return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Can we just switch the rarities? On these
Yeah,
last two?
I think that's a good idea. This looks like they should have had the other cards text.
Yeah.
This card's
This
fine.
is still good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a 6/6 or larger, basically always. And
It's kind of cancel the tumbleweeds a little bit better.
yeah,
maybe?
yeah, a little. That is kind of a really funny way to put it. A little bit better than Dance the Tumbleweeds. Although
But I think
it will be massive sometimes.
Yeah. And it does. This one does continue to grow.
Mm-hmm. Vigilance is nice. I think I'm gonna give Lumra like a B. I don't think it's nasty, amazing, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you on a B.
Cool. That's gonna bring us to our last green card here. Season of Gathering. 4 GG for a mythic. 5 paws worth of stuff to do. First paw mode. 1 paw. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. It gains vigilance and trample until end of turn. 2 paws. Destroy. Choose an artifact or enchantment. Destroy all permanents of the chosen type. 3 paws. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control.
Yeah, another. I think this one's also not as good,
Mhm.
but still solid.
Yeah, probably gonna be like spread out 2 counters. Draw 3 or 4 cards most of the time.
Yeah, or just 5 counters and
Yeah.
potentially just win the game.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, that's if you have a wide-ish board, just spreading around a vigilance and trample and +1/+1 counters. That's gonna end a lot of games.
Well, 6 mana overrun that only grows your team by 1. Like, it's not that good.
No, but modular, right? Like you can like grow it by 1. Oh no, sorry. You can't. Oh, yeah, you can. You go like 2 counters on one, 2 on another, 1 on another.
You can put 5 counters on one thing if you want.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, and in any case, it's good, but not busted. So I'd give Season of Gathering like a C+.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Yep.
Okay, lands. We got a few lands. We've got some special guests, and then we're out of here. So first land here is a reprint, Fabled Passage. It taps to go find a basic land from your deck, put it on the battlefield tapped, and if you control 4 or more lands, you untap that land. So essentially, early on, it's a Evolving Wilds. Past turn 4, it goes get the lands untapped.
Yeah, I like this, like a B
Yep,
minus.
good fixing land. B minus for Fabled Passage. Next up is
Okay.
Fountain Port. We've got a colorless land here, so let's see if this colorless land offers us enough to destroy our mana base worth for it. It's that rare. Tap to add colorless. 2 tap, sack a token, draw a card. 3 tap, pay a life, make a 1/1 blue fish token. 4 tap, make a treasure token.
I think so. I like this thing.
Yeah, it's got enough going on, like enough options. I think you're gonna want to, in most game states, do like one of these things. Also, it's instant speed, so you can block sack with your token.
Yeah, I think this is definitely worth destroying your mana base. I think this card's really good.
Yeah, not often is the last mode going to be used to make it a not colorless land for a turn, basically.
Well, I don't know about that. Like you'll prefer to make fish if you can, but if
Mhm.
you're low on life, making treasures, like there's a lot of cards that wanted you to have tokens in play,
Mhm.
and we were talking about you needed sources of tokens, and this is a nice way to do that.
Yeah, and just like paying a life, paying a life, tapping 3 to make a fish token. It sounds a little bit painful, but if they've got like a 5/5, you're effectively making a chump blocker each turn. Not the most easy. It's not the easiest thing to just spend 4 mana to do that all the time, but it's an option.
Yeah, I don't think like your aggressive decks won't want this,
Mm-hmm.
but any slower deck, I'm
Yeah.
happy to play this.
No, totally agree.
So for that reason, I guess I give it like a C.
And it is another way to pay life in black white, which is kind of funny. So
True.
yeah. Sorry, what was your rate?
C.
C. Yeah, I like C for Fountain Port too. And it's kind of funny. You might think we give it a slightly higher grade, but colorless land's still an issue. 3 Tree City, legendary land at rare. When it ETBs, you choose a creature type, tap to add colorless, and it kind of like Nykthoses for that creature type. So you 2 tap it, choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type.
Yeah, I don't like this thing.
No, that seems like a constructed card. F.
Yeah, I'm an F for this.
Special guest time. So we've got these 10 cards that are Rares and Mythics that, we see these every set at this point. There were the pitch elemental cycle in MH3 plus some other cards. OTJ was like, we had like Notion Thief, and, it's a bunch of cards that you're just not going to see that much, but you're going to see from time to time, so it's worth talking about them. All reprints from previous sets. The first one here is a good one, really good one. Swords to Plowshares. Single white mana for an instant. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power.
Yeah, this is just an A for pure efficiency, I think.
Pure efficiency A. Agree on that. Ledger Shredder is a 1 in a blue 1/3 bird with flying. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Ledger Shredder connives, which means you draw a card, then discard a card, and if you discarded a non-land card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Ledger Shredder.
Another B plus.
Yep.
Really
This
good. Yeah.
card was great. We saw this in Streets of New Capenna. Even has some bird upside here. So yeah, B plus for Ledger Shredder.
Mm-hmm.
Rat Colony. 1 in a black for a 2/1. It's a rat. It gets +1/+0 for each other rat you control, and a deck can have any number of cards named Rat Colony.
So you need rats for this.
Yes.
Because the 2 mana 2/1's not a 2024 playable limited card. But if you have like, so I guess a synergy C plus.
Synergy C minus even. I don't know. Like I guess no. You know what? C plus is probably more accurate because if you have 10 rats and this is like a 4/1 on average. I might even just give that a C still.
All right, synergy C. Then.
Synergy C. Relentless Rats. This is 1 black for a 2/2. It gets +1/+1 for each other creature named Relentless Rats. And a deck can have any number of Relentless Rats. This one's an F. This one you're not going to have more than one. So it's just a 3-mana 2/2.
Yeah.
Kindred Charge. 4 red for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. For each creature you control of the chosen type, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step.
I thought this was an F, but it might not be.
Yeah, and it's not quite enough. But so like a raccoon deck probably likes this card. Just having a bunch of giant trampling things.
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't get trample. Yeah, you mean if they have
If they
trample
have
already.
trample, yeah, just like some of the raccoons do have tramples, all I'm saying.
Yeah, there's also like there's a number of ETBs in this set.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. ETBs do make up for a lot of awkwardness here. If you get like a spell's worth of effect.
So the red decks, so otters are not going to want this. Lizards are probably not going to want this because it costs 6.
Mm-hmm.
Raccoons might, and mice might.
I think it's still a low grade, just not an F.
Yeah, like a D plus.
Yeah, I like that. It's. I think the amount you want to play this card is based on the amount of ETBs you have, basically.
And like just your raw creature count of that type.
Yes, for sure. You got to have a reasonably high creature count, 15, 16.
Yeah.
Sylvan Tutor, single green mana for a sorcery. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it on top. Nah.
F.
F,
Me.
yeah, not worth the card. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, 3 and a green for a 1/1 legendary creature squirrel. Cannot be countered, is indestructible, attacks each turn if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Yeah, this card was pretty good in Kaldheim.
It was pretty good. Comes down, is an annoying blocker. Your opponent's really...
For one turn.
Yes, for one turn, it's an annoying blocker. But then the thing is, your opponent has to leave back a blocker every single turn for Toski.
Well, for all your creatures.
Yeah, sure. For all your creatures.
Because if you get one thing through, you draw a card.
Yeah. I think Toski ended up being like a B-ish in Kaldheim, and I would say it's about the same here.
Yeah, I'll bump it up to B+,
B+?
because it's got
Sure. Secluded Courtyard. This is a land that, as it enters, you choose a creature type, taps or colorless, or a mana of any color of that creature type.
Yeah, so this one, I know we're almost done, tail end, 3 cards left, but maybe worth spending a second on this. Maybe not. It only is going to come up once in 1,000 drafts. I think like you're gonna have, if I said you're gonna have like 10 creatures of the type in an average deck, then I think this thing is like playable.
Yeah, we had this conversation during Ixalan with Cavern of Souls, right? Where it's like not unplayable. You just have to make sure you've got, I think you said about that number too. Yeah, if you're there, it's playable.
It's like a C-.
Yeah, I would say that. Like, playable means makes your mana base better, not worse. that's basically what you're asking yourself. And
right,
I think
there's no upside beyond the tapping for the color.
So yeah, C- if you've got 10 or 11 of those or more of a single creature type. Sword of Fire and Ice. This is 3 mana for an equipment. Equip costs 2. Equip creature gets +2/+2, has pro red and blue. Whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of Fire and Ice deals 2 damage to any target, and you draw a card.
So don't get fooled into thinking this only goes in the Valiant deck.
Yeah.
Card is an A+.
Yeah. I'm going to slightly hot take and say it's not an A+. Actually, I'm just going to give it an A. I think we've seen swords kind of like underperform a little bit, like just the tempo hit you take when it goes wrong. I agree it's the best one. I agree. This is the best sword that they've printed. I still don't think it's quite A+, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Swords aren't as good anymore, chat says. Yeah, like they're still good. They're just not as like busto as they were, when they were first printed.
Yes.
And our last card, this is a quick F. Frogmites. 4 mana, artifact creature, 2/2 with affinity for artifacts. Nope.
For Frogmite. There we go.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you once again. We are finally at the end of our Bloomburrow set review. Final thoughts on the rares or just the set in general?
Yeah, so as we saw today, a lot of the rewards are typal, and there wasn't a ton of cards that made you want to do something really different.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think a lot of the draft will be early on picking the generically good cards for the first like 3 to 5 picks, trying to see which lane is open, settling into like your open creature type lane, and then just kind of almost crossing your fingers and hoping for packs 2 and 3 at that point. Obviously, draft is more complex than that, but a lot of this set I think will come down to the gameplay aspect of it. How good is the gameplay? Because the drafting probably going to be a little bit simpler. So if you're newer to Magic and you're, been intimidated by limited, then I think this is a great set to get started with. I think there's going to be a lot of purchasing of this product because the set's very thematic and very interesting and fantastic art. But I expect by the time this set's done, we'll be ready for the next one.
Yeah, I think that my thoughts echo that. I think that this seems like a more, I won't say even simple set, because I think there's some complexity to it, but just straightforward, right? I think we talked a little bit yesterday about 17 lands, putting players on the path of discovering all that there is in a format pretty early on. And there are some formats these days that buck that trend. There's still layers that are there to uncover. And I'm sure this format will have some of that. But I would guess 80% of this format gets uncovered in the first 2 weeks just from the 17 lands data. So,
Yep.
Still gonna be fun. I think the mechanics, they look like they play really cleanly. I think a lot of this, the general design choices. So as far as just fundamentals of design goes, I think they hit the mark pretty well before we play. Of course, I don't know for sure, but at an initial glance, things check out for me. Longevity, we'll see, but seems like a cool one.
Yeah, there's also some like frogs is something brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Squirrels and bats are kind of like you don't usually get to draft decks exactly like that. So there's some novelty still here.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you're watching on Twitch, of course, this is going to be up on the YouTube feed later tonight if you want to go back, check something else out. Next episode is probably going to be the State of the Format address. So if you're new to limited level ups, the way things work is after about a week of playing, I come on, talk about the entire format, tell you where we were right and wrong about our card evaluations here today, tell you about what better decks are, the ways I've been approaching the format. So stay tuned for that in about a week and a bit's time. Also have a pre-release tips and tricks video coming out later this week, probably tomorrow. And I think it's going to do it. Marc, as always, been awesome to have you. Chat, thanks for hanging out. And good luck this weekend. Hope there's a good... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Last thing we'll say. Well, first of all, for anyone here on Twitch, Alex, I'm assuming is going to be spending a large chunk of tomorrow doing early access.
That's right, yeah.
And for anybody who's looking for getting quick access to our grades that we just gave, even though the tier lists do not get posted right away, they will be available on Alex's Discord, which is also a fantastic resource and free for everyone.
Indeed, and I just linked to the links to the Discord and also the YouTube channel, the Patreon, all that stuff that is connected to the show. All right. See you, Marc. See you, everybody. Enjoy this set pre-release this weekend if you're playing it, or if you're just starting draft next week. We'll see you then. All right. Bye, everybody.